Welcome back to RPG Archive. We've got a hell of a show. This one's a new game. It's SMT5. Super, super excited. As always, we've got Teddy here from Majora T.
Hey, y'all. It's time for some archive here on the channel.
That's right,
Spencer.
That's right. And we got a very special guest today. We got VGMashUP. Aman, how are you doing, man?
Doing great. Looking forward to my first ever, and hopefully not last, RPG Archive episode.
Oh my God. It's great to have you here. You're a great part of the community. You got an awesome channel. Tell us a little about your channel and what you do.
Well, VGMashUP, as the name implies, cover pretty much everything. And that's the way it's going to be moving forward. No sides, no genres, just basically if you're into gaming, that's what I cover.
What's your favorite kind of games? There's one right answer to this, by the way.
Yes, well, your channel name should probably give it away, but I tend to like RPGs just a little bit more than other games.
Very good. That's what I like to hear. We have a strenuous relationship. Of course, I handle the finances over on Button Mappers, and I had to let you go recently because your tech support was lacking. But I'm glad that you could join us and we could be civil here today.
I mean, I'll bill you later for this episode, so we're good.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that gets paid, but it'd be nice to have the invoice.
You guys have really rekindled your connection over Wi-Fi. The tech support needs to be working.
Improvements had to be made, you know.
Yeah.
Spencer will reconsider your application.
Thank you.
Send it to my desk. Have my secretary look at it. Man, I'm super, super excited. We got that out of the way. All the links to their channels will be in the description below. Make sure you check them out if you want some great gaming content. Let's get started. We did SMT3 a little bit ago, a couple months ago. I can't remember, it was October, something like that. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like I think towards the end of summer because you were finishing it up as we were on vacation. I think I had like just finished it either before I left or after we got back. I think we recorded it in August.
Yeah.
But hell of a game, hell of an archive. That was like 3.5 hours. Quality content.
Yeah, and it's got my #1 videos in it. So definitely excited for what this one might bring. Make sure you check that one out for Teddy and I's opinion on SMT as a series. But VG, I wanted to know, what's your take on SMT Shin Megami Tensei as a series? How'd you get started, and are you a fan of it?
Got started way back on the PlayStation 2, and with Shin Megami Tensei 3, was it? Nocturne?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was. Yeah, so that's where I started. As far as a fan, I was not the biggest fan of SMT 3, but I think that may have changed with the latest entry.
Okay. Have you played any other SMT games in the family?
Oh, Persona for sure. I mean, it's not necessarily the same. I mean, family, it's sort of a offshoot. And besides that, the Digital Devil Saga, I've played them a long time ago, but don't remember much about them. So my only experience was SMT3, which I played also a very long time ago, so I don't remember much. Persona, which I'm very familiar with, one of my favorite series, and then of course SMT5.
We've got a doozy of a question for you later, but
Okay.
Stick around, fans. We'll be doing that at the end. So that's our trick to make you listen to the whole thing. Good for our analytics. Anyway,
which Persona games have you played, beaten?
3, 4, 5, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
But I've played them, but I really thoroughly enjoyed them to the point where I was really taking my time, and the stories are still so memorable to me, especially with 4, even 5. I mean, both 4 and 5 were just amazing stories.
To know.
5 doesn't have Chie.
No.
That's kind of a
4.
problem, isn't it?
It is.
That's so fun. I love 5, but whenever I think of 5, I'm like, it has everything's so great about it, but there's no Chie. I kind of get sad because I love
Or
that character.
Kanji. Kanji's cool too.
Yeah, I think 4 had better characters, but
Yeah.
save that for the 4 archive. Persona 4. You guys ready to get
Yeah.
started?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about SMT5. As always, we start with the development of the game, and we go all the way back to January 2017 when SMT5 was announced for the Nintendo Switch. Do you guys remember this? How pumped?
Loud and clear.
Were you pumped?
Dude, I did like there was no scheduled timeline or anything. I think it was just like a title screen.
Mhm.
They just showed the title SMT5 and like I think they showed like maybe a cinematic trailer of just like angels and demons like descending. But I was stoked. I had come fresh off of 4 and 4 Apocalypse. I think I had finished those even prior to the Switch release. And then just time went by and we weren't getting any word of SMT5. And it's just like, is this game even still being made? Like, became a question. 5 years it took after that. I think, or no, 4 years, I guess. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So within the year 21, like towards, I think it was like November or December it got the release.
Yeah.
I don't think it even got announced again until like a late 2020 trailer or an early 2021.
Mm-mm.
So I do remember the first trailer, and I remember just kind of suspending, like, okay, it's going to come out. Maybe it would be amazing if it does, and I can't wait to once it finally got confirmed alongside the SMT3 Nocturne remaster. Just being like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna go through Nocturne and get ready to slice some demons and recruit them too.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I remember the announcement, and I thought it was a really good move to put it on the Nintendo Switch because what better platform than the Nintendo Switch to play these types of long, methodical, very complex, I mean, to an extent, RPGs. I think it was the perfect system for it, the perfect match, and I was really happy to hear that. That was during the first year, I believe, of the Nintendo Switch, so it was a really cool announcement.
Yeah, and that's one thing when you're like with the Switch, you're like, well, it doesn't have many games now, but it's gonna have SMT5 so at some point. It'll
Yeah.
be my SMT5 device. I
Oh,
remember.
I agree with you. Oh, so no, you go first, and then I'll
Well,
come
I
back.
remember looking at the trailer and just being like, as an SMT fan, I'm sure a lot of SMT fans would agree that the trailer it doesn't have to show you anything because you kind of know what an SMT game is. It's not like they're gonna throw you a curve. I mean, they could, but it's not like in general they're gonna throw you a curveball and they'll be like, "Oh, it's a first-person shooter now." And it's kind of this thing. Yeah, as an SMT fan, you know there's gonna be demons. You're gonna be a kid, and you're gonna go through a big world. Like that's kind of the bread and butter of it. So I didn't need to see a lot, and they didn't really show you a lot. Yeah, I think they just showed you like demons in the sky doing stuff. You're like, oh, I'll probably kill all those, and be friends with all those at the same time. So no, I was super super pumped, and I was. Became my reason to get a Switch, honestly.
That's my one thing though, is like the Nocturne game came out on PS4 and Steam as well. Wouldn't you guys like to have seen this one on a couple more platforms?
I'm 100% sure this will come out on PC, at the very least.
Yeah, I'm always of the mindset more platforms the better. But like I said, as many platforms. Well, now there's the Steam Deck as well. So even with PC, you can play it on the Steam Deck or whatever. But I just think these types of games are so much suited for portability in mind because you can go on the go and continue your long adventures, or when you're at home, you can play it in dock mode. So it's just that perfect match.
I think there's a time and place for it because I could make a separate argument for PS4 being the home platform for a game like SMT. When I played through Nocturne, quite frankly, the performance was better on PS4, and I think there are a couple noticeable dips on Switch. For instance, if you do a demon fusion, and then once the demon gets fused, it's actually a little blurry before the demon comes into full light.
Yep.
So, some graphical infidelities, then also for a game like SMT that's so much about recruiting demons and getting all the endings, like there's a big incentive for completion. I think the PS4 with the trophy system tends to build that incentive in a little more naturally for completing the game.
I agree with all of that, and I will add the only caveat to them putting it on PC and slash PS5, PS4 is I would prefer it if I got a graphical overhaul, but I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna get an upscale. But I'll take it. Honestly, it's kind of a drag to know that you have a like beast of a hardware and you're playing it with PC or with Switch specs.
The share button on PS4, that's another feature. Also on a computer, like it's really easy to just get gameplay at any time. Doesn't seem like a game that would take a toll on your computer by being too intensive. Although the engine's pretty good, we'll come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's unreal.
It's pretty unreal, dude. They had an annual praying event recently. This comes from an interview. Recently, members. Or no, not an interview. This is from an article. Recently, members of Atlas, including SMT series producer Kazu and VG Teddy corrects me on my pronunciations because I do not know how to say Japanese names. Kazuyuki Yamai.
Sounds good to me.
Dude, you're natural.
Doing it, man. Took part in their annual praying event, this time at the Kishimojin Shrine in Tokyo, and 4Gamer was invited as well. I guess this is a 4Gamer interview. All the links I have here, but I don't remember. It is a relatively common occurrence that when a project in Japan heavily involving horror or the occult is in the works, staff members should perform a harai, something ritual at a Shinto shrine for its success and to be purified. In 2013, Atlas staff members reportedly stated that they had not performed their annual event for this before the release of SMT4 in May. The rumor that circulated because of this and what Atlas staff joked about is that injuries and accidents due to the development team and the ensuing Index bankruptcy was due to the curse of demons and evil spirits. Because they had not prayed for the development of SMT4, they were hit by a crisis. This is an event that was made public in October 2015 for Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse. I do want to note early on that Teddy has played 4, and I would like to play
Apocalypse.
Yeah, and Apocalypse, and I would like to play those in the future, and we might do that for an archive. We're waiting on some details for that. But Teddy will be the middleman and telling me if stuff was in 4, and if this is an evolution from 4. So. But what do you guys think of the annual praying event for these dark, demonic games?
Yeah, I think they're making up for it because if you look at the game, I mean, I would say a lot of religious groups would probably get a little offended by it. I mean, so maybe they're like, okay, maybe we've ticked off some of the gods. Let's just get some good points back in our favor by doing some prayer. Who knows?
Could see that. Japanese cultures tends to be one of more mysticism, I think, just from an outsider's perspective. So, this seems like a very it's a respectful practice for the game. In fact, they missed it for SMT4 and then are kind of leveraging that as a reason for, things happening at Atlas. It's interesting, but it even says they joked about it. So, I think it's not exactly tongue in cheek, but at the same time, I think it's just like a community building thing. And given the territory of the game, it's kind of an ownership of their identity. This is the type of game that we're creating, this kind of like play on the occult and the gods and deities. And, I think while there are people who are going to go out of their way and say this is sacrilegious, I think a lot of it does come from a place of respect. And you can see that in the lore and in the celebration of these characters. Aside from one that is quite a phallic representation, most of them are pretty well done.
I always found it. Well, what I thought was we'll get into that later, but they never used Jesus. Like they're all like the older gods, which is smart because they're leveraging that nobody will be offended by anything like that. I'm sure there might be some people, but in general, people are pretty happy with like let's just play around with the Greek gods and let's play around with the Roman stuff, and then they just leave it at that.
Well, they
Well,
do go into the, I guess, like the South Asian gods, like India, in
Hmm.
that sort of religion as well. Like Shiva, plays a
Yeah.
significant part in this game. So, and I think his like little ambassador was a snake. So, like, you could make arguments, and I'm not coming from a perspective of somebody who practices these religions,
Hmm.
so I'm not going to be offended. But I could see why somebody doesn't like a representation.
yeah, a lot of interesting religious choices. Some of the main religions were maybe left off, but a lot of the, like you mentioned, Indian, there was also quite a few Sri Lankan gods that were mentioned in there. Of course, Japan, China had representation when it comes to that. So a lot of those Asian, I guess, gods, and of course the Greek mythology and all that stuff was there as well. So some interesting choices. I don't know if it was on purpose or just something that made sense for the game.
Uh, we got. I put a list here, and obviously I misspelled something because I put DE and didn't really write what I was talking about. But if I recall correctly, this is some of the things that the developers wanted to do for SMT5. Some of their goals. And the first Shin Megami Tensei was released in October 25 years ago. We wanted to tell everyone that the SMT series will continue, so use this timing to make the announcement. That was the announcement that it was coming out. One of the directions we are taking with SMT5 is to re-examine the characteristics of the era. There are surely many people frustrated by troubles both at home and abroad, such as anxiety about finding a job and getting old, or terrorists and nuclear weapons. Oh, it's a bit of a jump. I want to make an SMT game that can sympathize with such an era. That is our challenge. Do you guys, did this game address that at all?
Addressed an
Guess if you look
apocalypse.
from the high school, with Ichiro Dazai and I can't remember the kid with the glasses name, Yazuma or something, Yazuru, maybe. But honestly, the character development within the main characters was a bit shallow. You could say like they make a comment about Ichiro Dazai using social media and then like being the kid who makes videos, and one of the kids in school calls him a loser, and it's just implied. So, I mean, maybe he's doing something to build his future. And then there's also kind of a hopelessness. Like, what's the point? Like the futility perspective. I think that's Dazai, and that's why he relies so heavily on Archangel Abdiel. And then the other guy kind of follows the prime minister, just kind of like a lapdog.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be some commentary there. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Amon.
Yeah, I just think, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like I said, I mean, there's this whole, well, this is typical of the Shin Megami Tensei games, but the whole apocalypse thing that happens and, city in ruins and just, I mean, it's not necessarily representative of a of a terrorist whatever incident, but I'm just saying it's still sort of a representation of the effect of the after effects if such a catastrophic event were to occur. So there are some ties in that sense.
When I hear stuff like this, I feel like such a dolt. Cause like I don't pick up on any of that. Like I guess I see when I play these games, I guess I just only see them at face value, and I'm like finding a job or getting old or nuclear. I was fusing demons and fighting them in hell. Like what are you talking about? But maybe there's some like metaphors in there that I just don't get. But I'm with Teddy. I found it to be honestly a very, especially compared to 3, quite shallow in most of its story points. I
And
didn't.
that's shocking. More shallow than 3.
Yeah, and we'll get to that for sure. But yeah, I just found it. I was surprised by how little anything seemed to matter, like as far as the story goes. So I'm very shocked to hear that they had such a weird theme going in.
Ambitious. perspective or something. Yeah. Like I get, well, of course, there's the main concept of like you being in a simulation Tokyo. There was never any reason to have any feelings for it in the first place. But again, we may be coming at this as outsiders
Mm-hmm.
to somebody who's more familiar with the Chiyoda prefecture in Japan, or Da'at, or some of these other locations you go to. Maybe this means more, and it definitely means more in terms of the environments, which we'll come back to.
I like this one. This one actually makes sense to me. The keyword Shekinah glory, which appear in the trailer, literally translate to miracle of God. When you actually play it and have these keywords in your head, I think you'll be able to feel their true meaning. It's like the Nahobino thing where you're just like a fusion. That makes sense to me. This is the first time Atlas is using Unreal Engine 4. The game development environment has changed dramatically, and you can check what you made immediately on the game screen, allowing us to cut down on a lot of time working over ideas and trial and error. I'm really grateful to have been introduced to it. So yeah, they got the Unreal Engine 4. I guess that's a big upgrade from whatever the hell they were using before. I don't even know
3DS.
I don't know if you can run Unreal Engine on 3DS. So good.
I think initially the game struggled a little bit in performance, but then they did do some patches and stuff that really improved the frame rate. At least I noticed it initially.
Nintendo Switch is a lovely platform where you can play high-definition quality games and freely carry the hardware from place to place. We agree with that. Definitely.
It's a fact. There's no debating that.
Since this is the first SMT game on a home console in a long time, I want to deliver a hybrid game that combines the profound appeal of SMT Nocturne and the popular training elements of SMT4 and the like. What do you think he means by that, Teddy? You played SMT4.
Well, I think that Nocturne is a bit more of a cerebral experience, whereas SMT4, while though strong in its narrative development and character development, and I think arguably more so than Nocturne in some regards, is definitely notorious for its gameplay systems. You see things like the Miracle system, or I don't know. I mean, maybe some of like the demon upgrades, etc. They weren't called miracles in SMT4. They were called. You had like a smartphone app. This was in the era of smartphones, so like they were trying to integrate that cleverly. And basically, this is an evolution of that, but it has different brackets. In the other one, it was a bit less developed. In this one, they've really like intensified that. So what I get out of the quote about like the profound appeal of Nocturne and the training elements of SMT4 is that they're trying to do it all. They're trying to have a game that is a massive telling, and where your choice really does have significance on the plot, while making it an incredible gameplay experience, especially as far as team building and demon fusing and compendium building, etc.
Amon, having played 3, were you shocked at some of these improvements on the demon formula?
Oh, the interesting thing about when I played 3 was so long ago that I almost went into this as a completely brand new experience. So I don't really remember too much about 3, but I did enjoy the formula to an extent of getting demons and stuff. But I think a lot of the discussions for me just got a little too annoying, so I was almost taking more of an approach of begging them to join my side rather than me negotiating them to come and join me.
I'm with you, dude. I don't do that talking shit. I get over that very quickly. Let's talk about the demon design. The designer is Masayuki Doi.
Boy.
Right.
Boy.
2 for 2. They asked him, how much research goes into your demon design process? And he says, we're thorough in how much time we spend on research to help find clues about how we should approach our designs. Aside from the folk tales surrounding each demon, we also look into their broader mythological lore, historical details about the time period, as well as things like what kind of traditional garbs and accessories people in that era wore. Some demons actually have few surviving stories, so we try to be comprehensive in compiling these sorts of relevant information. I found that so interesting. There's a lot of demons in this game that are just like people, like, which oddly are my favorite of all of them. I like the ones that are just like a guy's name and then he just shows up in your party. What any demons that stand out to you guys for their design?
One that's later in this graphic where the girl is like split in half and has like tentacles coming out.
Oh.
Anangai or something.
Talk about that one in a second.
That was gross. That was my strongest demon for a while.
Really?
Yeah. And I had the unique skill, which was really cool. But we're not talking about skills. We're talking about demon designs.
Mm-hmm.
What I liked the most was the return of classic demons, like the 3 ogre or the 4 ogre quest in Nocturne.
I remember that in the subway system.
Yeah, and their names are all end with key. It's like Kin Key, Sui Key. I don't even remember the other Fui Key or something. Just getting to see them again was really cool, as well as like the sisters, the Moirai sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were like instant grabs for me. And just to see, I think my thing was, Nocturne and even 4 to an extent, don't put the demons on screen in the overworld. This is a free roaming thing, kind of like what they did with the Dragon Quest VIII remake.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really exciting to see what demons would be patrolling in the area. And so in that respect, I really liked seeing like Kinki marching down like Satan's hallway in his castle.
Yeah.
Or like a Fafnir dragon flying overhead. Those were the moments where I was just like, oh. It was exciting getting to see what would come up in the next areas. SMT4 only had holograms. Like they almost look like Smash Brothers when they had the polygon fighters.
Yeah.
So you didn't know, like it was just a random encounter. Might as well have been with the attack system. I don't even know what you call it. The early attack, preemptive attacks. But this one, I think I like that a lot about this game. Was just getting to see demons on the overworld that weren't just dialogue options, that were actually like, compatible.
Teddy, Anamon, this is, I guess, would be for all of us. Do you think the days of random battles are just, that's something that should be left in the past? Or do you think you'd like them in the future?
I think if there is a good enough balance, then you can do random battles. But I prefer battles that I control. So I like the non-randomness of them. But there's still a place for them to an extent. I think the older models where it was just hindering with your exploration, that system I think is done with, and something that I appreciate not being part of many RPGs in this era.
I think we're in a new game plus era. And when you play new game plus with random battles, it's just a drag. It's just auto battle. And luckily enough, in SMT5, you have that. You could just press X anytime you go into a battle. But I do think that turn-based RPGs benefit greatly from having the characters on the screen, unless they look dopey, while they're doing it. I do think there is kind of a charm to old school RPGs where, that was part of the challenge, was getting over an area, and especially in a game that there was no new game plus, because at the end of the day, it's always a constant grind, and that's helping you with your grind. But in the modern day, enemies on screen is probably the best way to go.
Yeah, as a recent example. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, as a recent example, Octopath Traveler, I think, does a decent enough job that even though the battles are random, they don't feel overwhelming to the point where they become annoying.
That's a really good example of a modern game doing that. Although obviously that one's harkening back to older games, but it doesn't feel terrible in Octopath Traveler. So whatever mechanism they're using, that might still work. I see random battles as a thing of the past for sure. I think they were only there for a necessity. I don't think there's a reason to have them in future games. My one exception to that, I don't really know how you put them in or you get away from that. And they're not entirely random in this instance, but still in classic dungeon crawlers, which I love. I love, love, love dungeon crawlers, but I don't really see how you don't have. They're not random, but random-ish battles in that. It's that would be tough.
Think you can just put a pointer or a marker up there to indicate there's an enemy. So once you're done with the enemy, you're done with the enemy. So you can kind of get an idea of, okay, whichever route you're taking in these dungeon crawl. Obviously, the map is not visible early on, but you at least get an idea of what you're about to run into, and it doesn't come too cumbersome. Because I think just when you're getting into way too many random battles, I think it kills the exploration part, and that's the part that really annoys me more than anything.
A counter to this would probably be the Pokemon series. I think the newest games lose some of that charm and I guess I don't know the word for it, but I guess the thrill, titillating nature of going into a cave and feeling like you're under level and feeling like you really got to power through it. It feels like it's just freebies now.
I think there's a way to make Pokemon have non-random battles, but it would take effort from the developer and like creative ideas that I don't think they're interested in. So yeah, I think just go back to just making random would be better. Because that was the fun of it. It was like random battles, and that you could get a rare Pokemon in that random battle. Now it's like, well, you can see them on the freaking screen. Like, what does it matter? You just wait. I don't really know.
Right.
So
Like classic ones that, the Pokemon would be shaded out and then it would come in and then once it appears on the screen and it was, thinking back on it, it's just the easiest transitions. It's just like a
yeah,
Pokemon panning from left to right. But like seeing an Onyx all shaded and then, oh my God, it's Onyx. Like you've been fighting Geodudes forever. Nothing against Geodudes, of course.
of
But
course not.
Geodudes, man. But there is still kind of like that excitement, I think, to the random battle in the classic looking Pokemon where it's sprite based. I don't know in the 3D era of RPGs if that would work as well.
Yep. They asked him, what kind of material do you find yourself searching through when looking for inspiration in possible designs? He said, we typically look at visual references and designs created during the corresponding historical periods. For example, when designing a demon from the Greek pantheon, aside from paintings and sculptures, we also like to look at things like architecture, as well as artifacts and furnishings discovered by archaeologists. Hydra, which appears in the game, is a great example of a demon we designed after finding clues from these types of reference materials. Man, this game must have taken a lot of research.
Dude, that's fascinating to me. How many demons did you fight? You were like, what is that? In historical, in history.
Oh, God, like half of them. I'm like, what the hell is
Like,
this?
Technically, take something as simple as like Sandman, right? I guess what is that supposed to be? The boogeyman? How many references do you have to go off of?
Yeah, it's got to be like they've got to have, and they're in different people's interpretations of it too. Like, so like you got like 50 different references to that character, I'm sure, and it's passed out through generations. And it's like he was like a dark figure with a moon face, and then other people are like, oh, he's like a scary man with a hood. Like, who knows, man? And you just got to cobble it together and be like, what makes the most sense and what would be the coolest for art design.
Yeah, I think the art design in general is probably one of the strongest points, and demon design and the animation that goes into these characters is really one of the stronger points of this game. But it's also really fascinating to just go back and read about the history of these demons, which they provide, and learn so much more about them. I'm very familiar with the Indian gods and the Indian demons that are associated in the game, but not so much the other Asian cultures, which I really appreciated going back to and learning more about. And of course, also with Greek and stuff like that as well.
All
You
right.
know, there are a couple demons that are like staples, you know, that you'll just see through peppered throughout the game. I think like if you take something like the Angel, right? The Angel's the first thing that comes in and then picks up Dazai, or is that his name? Ichiro Dazai, and then like brings him to the Temple of Bethel. And then you see angels like from start to finish of the game. Even their design is like fascinating. They look uh like Transformers almost with like their golden face mask or like
Yeah.
the like those like bougie parties where people like wear masks and stuff. I was just fascinated because it's something as simple as an angel and then they use this as the creative interpretation for it. Or the mermaid. The mermaid was like a super Celtic design. That was really cool. That's one of the first demons that I saw that had like a special skill. It's like tormenting water, and it has like skulls floating around it. But I guess it makes sense because the mermaids are being conflated with like sirens, and they cause like people to capsize at sea. So I liked the creative direction with the art, and it was very similar, I think, to a lot of the other SMT mainline games that I've played. You know, we had talked about Kazuma Kaneko in Nocturne being the primary artist, and he does have a role in the art design here. But Masayuki Doi, I guess, is the lead designer, and quite frankly, I think for him running the interview here, I think that like the art is beautiful. It's well conceived. I was generally impressed by what I was looking at. And yeah, I don't I liked it. And I also want to talk a little bit more about Masayuki Doi.
Okay.
I'll do that when the time's right.
I could see this game being an absolute bitch for Atlas to get out the door. There's game, and you can see it with freaking Pokemon. They're like, they just took all of the designs from the 3DS game and just punched them up for like the Switch release. And in this game, they have, how many demons are there? Like hundreds, right?
Can look that up for you.
Yeah, there's so many demons in this game that they basically built from scratch. And in so many JRPGs, there's like reskins and they just use the same guy, but he's blue now. And hey, whatever you got to do to make it work. I appreciate that. But in this game and in this series, every time they release a new one of them, they do all of them, and they're usually on a new engine, and they got to animate them. And in this one, obviously more so than ever before. And they put in so much work. You can just see all the effort. And they did. And one of the things is that we talked about earlier is that they're using, real gods and real things from real lore. So it's not like they want to shortchange anybody because it's like pay your respects. So it's not like they have Pikachu and they can just half-ass it. It's like something that somebody cared about. So they put all their effort into it, and everybody looks great. Everybody's well represented. I can only imagine the effort on this was insane.
There are 221
Jesus.
demons with 234 with DLC.
That's
New inclusions too. So new demons that weren't included in previous games.
Wow.
That just makes you think like this guy after an SMT game, this guy must be taking a 5-year break of just living in Hawaii or something. His hands are broken or however he designs. That's
Labor
so
of love. I do wonder though, how much of this engine was able to be adopted from the Nocturne remaster. I can't find Unreal listed in the wiki for Nocturne, but that might be worth finding out. Because maybe there was some legroom saved there. Might have been like, well, we're going to put all this work into getting these demons anyway, so why don't we just go ahead and remaster Nocturne because we can kind of carry over some of the designs. I don't think that like the Ogres or the Moirai sisters look particularly different.
That's true. That's very true.
Or even like the Jack Frost or like, Sandman, for instance, or like a Agathion. They all looked similar. But I guess you do have to repurpose them for an overworld, so I don't know. I can't speak to it.
Yeah. Some more interview stuff. What demon designs have you found yourself the fondest of? Doi said, it's difficult for me to choose because I have such fond memories of each one, but I do love the design of Nuwa. Rather than designing her literally, we were able to give our own unique interpretation to her appearance and infuse what we felt would be appealing to see in a game character.
He was great. That was a intense first encounter. Her being like the second boss in the game, like I got my ass handed to me like maybe 6 or 7 times. I was getting frustrated. But he looked like a badass coming into that arena with like angels dead on the floor.
Yeah, she's hot.
I think that was a really strong character in general. Both her and her counterpart, which I forget his name, but yeah, they were both strong.
And then here's a really interesting question. Has there ever been a time when you made a design that you felt was too out there? And he said, Man Nan Nan Gal, which is the one you were referencing earlier, which appeared in this game, definitely comes to mind. We did try to design her in a way that muddled any areas that could potentially be restricted, but because we really emphasized the grotesque and erotic, I did feel it was maybe a bit out there. I'm putting a picture of that.
Way out there. Can we just like do a review of this artwork? This is amazing and terrifying. I ran into this demon. I did say it was in my party. It was always weird because like you can look at the demon, and so like I would open up my party, and I would like go to the profiles. I'd look at the demons. You can rotate them. She's like grabbing her ass with one hand, but the body is severed, and then half the body is mutilated, and the other half just looks like a sexy lady. While there's like large bat ears, and then the whole grotesque like intestines popping out of the body. It was just weird for sure. But holy shit, when she uses Sanguine Drain, that's a move. It's like a almighty HP sucker. And yeah, I was intrigued and grotesque at the same time. So they accomplished something. What that something is, not sure, but they did it.
Remember that Demon King? And he had his like stomach opened up but vertically. And
Oh yeah,
came out of it. Oh my god.
Yeah. Demon King, Lamu for me too. That was a pretty cool, especially during the boss fight. Just how he opens up, explodes out.
There's something like deeply unsettling about how the girl, like you were expecting the thing to just like eat her like murderously, and the girl just kind of walked into his mouth, and I felt that was actually more upsetting. It's like I'm climbing in. It just got so.
It looked disgusting. Like I don't even know how to describe Lamu's design. It's like kind of like gross cockroach-esque, like tentacles, not testicles. I don't know what cockroach testicles look like, but the Lamu might be it. He was gross, and she was like, he was manipulating her, and it's like, she's like a kawaii schoolgirl, falling under the vantage of like this disgusting, gross sounding monster. And so that was definitely upsetting, but I think for the feeling they're going for, it works.
Yeah. There were, I don't know if I recall anything more than that. That were what's that?
Mara.
Oh jeez.
Venus on a chariot.
Oh jeez, you're gonna bring him in.
Did you use Mara?
No.
Raise your hand if you used Mara. Okay. There are moves like Hell Thrust, and so like when Mara would do a physical attack, it was like the penis just stabbing forward. It was very visually detailed.
So
I got a hoot out of it. I thought it was hilarious.
Did you remember when did you fuse him?
Oh, I still have Mara. And if you look, like the portrait, like the character portrait, before you look at the actual design, like you could see like a little mouth under like the penis head.
But what I mean is, did you actually fuse him when you like created him?
Make him? I think so.
I wish that I was trying to screenshot it, but I was too slow because it has a joke when you actually fuse him. It's like you can whip him out now or something. It's something about whipping him out, which is just freaking great.
You can still refuse, so you can make them
I
again.
might go back and do that. That's so good. Speaking of, I did do a Reddit poll for this, but it ended.
Before you do, can I just say this about the artist? Like,
yeah,
I just want to mention this. So the main guy here, Masayuki Doi, started from Persona 2 in 1999, and his role was character coloring and card graphic.
wow, he's moving on up.
Yeah, he's come a long ways to being the main designer, a new demon designer and character designer for SMT5.
Very good. Good
cool.
for him. This was kind of a disaster. I almost don't even want to talk about it, but I was banned from the Mega 10 Reddit, so couldn't really get the results I was looking for here. But I'll read them anyway. I asked in a poll, what are your favorite demons that appear in SMT5? And I got 2 responses before I got kicked out. So here they are. Chris is the first said the penis chariot. Obviously, that's Mara. And Vanina G said Odin because his design is fucking awesome. Also, Alice is always one of my favorites. I agree. Alice was a cool one. She was like a special demon in this. I don't know if she was, maybe she always is, but she's a special demon that is pretty powerful when you get her, but, like all demons, pushed by the wayside.
It's supposed to be like Alice in Wonderland or something?
I think so.
I don't know. But I have her. Yeah, she's one of my first special fusions. Odin, for sure, is a badass. He's still in my party.
Nice.
Love me some Odin. I didn't think there would be a more badass one than Thor, but Odin took it. Yeah.
All right.
Dude, that's so stupid, man. What did you even get banned for? You're asking a question?
It must have been something that I pushed there before. I probably overdid it with sharing links. Whatever, they don't get the great content from RPG Archive. They lose, I think.
Okay, I'll just share it.
Yeah, I was gonna beg you, but I said forget it. It's over. You ready to talk about the release? All right.
Slow release into it.
This game released in Japan on November 11th, 2021, and had a worldwide release the next day on November 12th, 2021.
What is that, like salt in the wound?
Oh my god. I had so many plans. I had so many plans to stream this game. And not just like because I googled it. It's like, oh, it comes out November 11th. I just read that. I guess I didn't read further. So I had all these plans to stream it. I took a day off. I was ready, and then it was like, oh, it's coming out literally the next day, and at like midnight. They didn't say that either. Usually games come out at like 9 p.m. my time. Ugh, terrible. So yeah, that sucked. But it's kind of interesting that it came out all at the same time. I guess that's more of the way that it's gonna go now. Is hopefully, games get more close to a worldwide release instead of just in their origin place and then come out later.
Almost have to because of spoilers and stuff that have become way more of a thing now. I mean, you just can't stay away from them. So they really don't have much of a choice but to release them all simultaneously. And a funny story about the release, GameStop, of course, that I had pre-ordered the game from, lost my copy. So. Yeah, I had to wait for a little while before I got my hands on it.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
How long do you have to wait for a copy?
It was at least a week, if not longer.
Oh my god.
Yeah, they basically say again.
What edition did you get?
The Steelbook edition that I guess was the standard release for all systems, and they basically had the FedEx shipping label printed, but nothing came. And then I called and they're like, oh yeah, we don't know what's going on. And they were like, oh, we can't cancel it yet. Whatever, we gotta wait. It was basically a big pain. So eventually I was like, all right, I'm done with these guys, and I'll get my copy from Best Buy, which I did.
I am so sad to hear that. So I'm sorry.
Well, they literally
I did read it.
stopped your game, so they lived up to their name.
That's right.
They're like, yay.
It's not just the name; it's our game.
GameStop. GameStop exclusive. Do you want to stop your gaming time? Look no further.
The game sold. It's so. I like to talk about the sales of games, but it's hard for modern games because there's so much digital release, and you never really get hard numbers. But I'm gonna try my best with VG charts.
Hey, VG,
yeah. And
I'm popular.
they've said that the game has sold about 3.38 million, so 380 million units were pushed. And Atlas has confirmed that they've sold over 800,000 units as of time of this recording. So you can see somewhere there's digital and yada yada. So that's pretty good, but as we've said, it's not exactly the powerhouse that a lot of the RPGs we do are. And that's pretty notorious for this series. I have some previous sales, though, so we can compare it. We have SMT4. And again, the numbers are so difficult because of units versus digital and all that. It's so hard for me, so I have a hard time with these numbers, but we're just trying our best here. And that one sold about 600,000. Again, I don't know if that
pre-digital, right?
I don't know. Like, that's the problem is I can't. It's so hard for me to tell. But according to that, it's 600,000. Do with that what you will. Apocalypse doesn't. I couldn't find any hard data on Apocalypse, but the estimates that I found are around half of 4. Everyone was saying it sold about half of what 4 did. Again, take with that what you will. I thought I had 3 on here. Did I not include that?
Do I have it? I could just read it. It's
Okay.
under where you are in the doc. Nocturne has
there it is.
total sales worldwide of 0.38 million, 380,000.
Oh, that was
there
the point.
Was no digital release for that, so that's just hard data.
Well, that one's a little tricky too, though. Obviously, because of the 50 different releases they had of that game, even back then. But
oh my gosh, yeah.
But you can still see a trend here. It is going up, which is nice. And good news for us fans of SMT, because apparently there aren't that many, but the ones that are, we're growing and we're diehard. So that's awesome. It's good to see it's increasing, and I think with the you can see with the fixes that they did with 5 or fixes or tweaks, they're clearly trying to market it to a broader audience. VG, do you think this will ever be a Final Fantasy competitor?
I think it's a little too niche for that. I think Final Fantasy just overall reaches a broader audience. However, I do see that these numbers getting better and better. Now, this also is sort of limited by the fact that it was only a singular platform release. So if it was released on PC and other consoles, it probably would have done way better. But as these games gain more popularity, I definitely see, maybe not reach the Persona level, but definitely see a very healthy growth for us. I don't think it's a dying series. How about that?
I think that was such a good point, that if this came out on PC or hell, the PS5, PS4, this would be a million seller. I think it's guaranteed at this point. But I think it will. It'd probably break 1 million anyway, but I think it's gonna be released on PC, and then and it'll break 1 million for sure.
Yeah, I have no doubt.
There's a question about, do you want this to be million seller, or do you want it to remain niche? Do I want it to adopt trends of like the modern gaming industry? I don't know. I mean, I think Persona 5 does a pretty damn good job at maintaining and retaining its own identity. So I think that Mega 10 would have the potential to do so. You do see, as you mentioned with the numbers, Amon, they are balancing out nicely. With Nocturne, it was so much more preferred in Japan. It seems like North America had caught up on the 3DS, probably because it was one of the best RPGs on the system.
Mm-hmm.
And it became kind of mainstay. It was marketed alongside Fire Emblem, and so like that's how I got bought into the series. And then I think just we had talked about this being like the badass RPG on the Switch. Maybe that's where some of these numbers are coming from. And it's certainly like an antithesis to Pokemon, which came out at the same time. So like there's probably some rep there. And so I'm excited to see growth for the series. I do hope we don't have to wait another 5 years for another one, but I would understand because, they did pretty damn good job at delivering a solid product.
Yeah, I
Should put
think
it on
there's
Steam though. Holy shit. That's a leaving it on Switch. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say there is a little bit of a dilemma when you talk about a series or a game gaining in popularity, because on the one hand, you're getting more eyes, and as of course more people are enjoying the game, it's becoming more popular. The developers are going to take note of that and they're going to put more effort into it. But at the same time, you want to make sure, well, not me, but you're hoping that they are not making the game more accessible to the wider audience. They're keeping it, the core basically of what they've made this game popular amongst the fans that we currently have, sort of maintaining its roots in that way. So there's a little bit of a dilemma that you kind of deal with when a game becomes more popular amongst a wider audience.
There's few companies that I trust to maintain the integrity of their games, and Atlas is at probably the top of that list. These guys refuse to make changes to make their games more appealing. Just look at Entry and Odyssey, which has six entries in it, and they they do not make a game that anybody wants to play. I assure you, I've tried to get so many people. I'm like, man, Entry and Odyssey's great. It's got like a map making system with your stylus, and as soon as I say that, they always go, no. And they're like, well, there's 6 of them, so Jesus Christ, they're gonna never stop.
They're all the same game too, basically.
Yeah, they're the same thing, and they're just like, we're just gonna keep doing it. They do not seem to be swayed at all by markets. Now they are owned by Sega now, so there could be a different thing going on there. But so far, Sega's been awesome in just letting them be Atlas, which I would, if I owned Atlas, I would just say just do that, and I'll just support you whatever, because they are just so consistent, and everyone that loves them loves them. So I don't think, I'm not worried about them getting too popular, because the things they did to Persona 5 are phenomenal. Like and that was their big, like, we're going to a mainstream audience was 5, and I think everything that they did there was great. Nothing wrong with that, and they appealed to a lot of people, so I trust them to deliver.
Yeah, while what you're saying is accurate, all it takes is one leader. One leader that comes in afterwards and he sort of messes things up. So,
Like,
hopeful and optimistic.
Well, and what's interesting is that, I mean, that it does have an easy mode on SMT5, right? I don't know what that is. I think, right? There is like an easy
there
mode.
is one.
And there was on 3 as well, which I think got some people talking.
Remaster.
Yeah, the remaster that's
there's like DLC or something. Yeah.
So the workings are there, but so far nothing too offensive that I've seen.
It's not Pokemon levels. I think Pokemon is sacrosanct or something, with its, I don't know if that's the right word, sacrilegious with it. Pokemon catered way too hard, I think. And then, like, there's not like a curry mode for demons, like feed your Preta, plants or something.
They couldn't do that.
Fine.
They can't do that because you freaking get rid of them every 20 minutes. Jeez, when you're plowing through that game, it's like, oh, hey, cool, a lizard demon. Okay, you're gone. Thanks. Here's your hat. What's your hurry? The game was received generally favorable reviews, and was nominated for Best Role-Playing Game at the Game Awards. Nominated, Jesus. Although it was a good year for RPGs, so You got that going for it. It debuted
Kind
as,
of late too.
That's true. It debuted as the highest-selling physical video game of the week in Japan, with an estimated 143,000 copies sold.
Damn it, game of the week.
I love that.
Didn't Nocturne get that too?
Game of the week, yeah. They should put that on the back of the box. A big sticker.
I mean, how
Game of
many
the week.
games do you see that? Instant seller right here, game of the week.
If you were
while it's hot.
If you were around in 2021 on week 47, man, this was all the rage. I love this with an estimated. Somebody estimated this 143,247 copies. It's just a rough estimate of that.
At least there's no 0.5 in there.
Yeah. Some 0.5 or something. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, the verbiage of Wikipedia. It stayed in the top 10 for another 2 weeks and would go on to sell a total of 184,000 something physical copies in Japan before dropping off the reports. It outperformed other recent Japanese in the UK, it outperformed other recent Japanese role-playing releases like Bravely Default 2, Monster Hunter Stories 2, and Tales of Arise. In a New Year's message by Famitsu, Atlas announced the game had sold 800,000 copies.
It's in 2 months. That's not bad.
Let's look at the Metacritic. Is at 85 out of 100. Destructoid gave it 9 out of 10. EGM 4 stars. Famitsu 36 out of 40, which is pretty damn good. Game Informer gave it 8.25 out of 10. It's generally what you're seeing. Although VG 247 VG,
Gee.
this better not be one of your publications, gave it a 3 out of 5. That seems a little harsh.
Not my publication.
Okay.
This isn't your alt-out account we're talking about?
Maybe.
Polygon praised it. Despite the performance issues, the bigger areas and new engine allow for some creatures to be truly breathtaking and terrifying.
I agree with that.
IGN's Lena Hafer, like the Essence system, so it's possible to create some absurdly powerful and specialized teams that can take on almost any challenge.
Yeah.
They said GameSpot said every action in SMT5 has a weight to it, and that's what makes the game so fun and engaging. Huh?
Well, I would say every action within the gameplay systems, but not in terms of like the choices of dialogue, not until the very end.
Yeah, the choices literally have no weight to them until like one, or technically.
Well, there's certain choices that you make that determine which party member is going to join you, and I think there are certain, when you have the choice of one or the other, there's one that's usually a little bit better suited for the area that you're in or about to go into. So sometimes that's the only choice that does matter. This is primarily when you're doing sub quests and you say, "Hey, go kill that guy." You go kill him. That kind of
true.
choice.
You can see it for sub quests, not for the main characters though.
Right.
Yeah, for any like choice that's put before you, like when the game puts the words there. I don't know. That's just I found that they didn't have anything generally.
The same outcome happens. Like, let's charge in and kill Lamu, or no, we need to save the girl. No matter what you do, you just stop anyway.
Right. Yeah, that was disappointing.
Yeah.
Game Informer said SMT5 makes smart improvements to its already strong core, creating an entertaining and rewarding journey. So, seems like
Not
it's
a strange one.
It seems like it's been very well received. Ooh, here's something from VG247, which gave it that 3 out of 5. It says you have nothing to do with it.
Let's hear what they say, then I'll
You
determine.
have to make a statement.
They felt the refinements made to demon negotiation helped make the mechanic more understandable. Reviewer stated, the tone of your answers when entering talks with a demon actually matter, and you'll quickly build a familiarity with some of the more common personality traits of demons. Okay. I was disappointed. I thought they were going to criticize the game. They gave it a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I found the demon negotiations to be a bit more random. That was not my favorite aspect of the game.
It's true. Did say that. So.
We ready to talk about the game? It's what? Let me see how much. It's an hour and 6 minutes in. Are you ready to talk about the game?
Of course. Great game.
All right. Let's talk about the introductory plot here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Well, no, I will read this because I snippeted this out. After a war between angels and demons titled Armageddon, spanning 18 years before the events of the game, humanity would be wiped out from the face of the earth in a matter of moments. Additionally, Lucifer would declare that he has slain their god, leaving the victory to the side of chaos, with Lucifer using the god's knowledge to transcend to a higher plane of existence. However, the god's Shekinah glory has reshaped the world back into its original form as if nothing happened, but that reality is only an illusion, and the desolated Tokyo is still active behind the scenes. In the regular world where the public is oblivious to the truth, various murder incidents caused by mysterious figures would begin to bloom within Tokyo, leaving the city in a state of alert and unease. A global force by the name of Bethel, aware of the truth, who has also participated in the war, worked in secrecy to protect their world against these demons, taking the side of the angels. The Japan branch in particular has lost most of its fighting force in Armageddon. And finally, the protagonist, this is where we start, a high school student, living an ordinary life within that reality, has also had his school, as an oblivious authority, attempt to take countermeasures against these incidents, having students follow a buddy system on their way back to the dorms. After having to look for other students who wandered off, with one looking for the other, they wander into another world called the Netherworld, or Da'at. After being confronted by demons, a mysterious man, Aogami, locates him and, under the pretense that the protagonist's life is endangered, he follows his order, fusing with him and becoming a Nahobino. And that's where you kick off your story with SMT5. There's actually a lot of back plot and not a lot of forward plot in this game, which is kind of common for SMT. Did you like the plot in this game? At least the beginning.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So yes, I did. I mean, it was typical of what I remember of, SMT style of games, doom and gloom, angels versus demons, and you're sort of, I guess you kind of need to pick a side and determine what's the best outcome for, well, for whether, you want to be in charge, you want somebody else, gods to be in charge, many gods, one god, whatever the case may be. So the plot was pretty typical. Did I like it? It's not my favorite plot ever, but it certainly wasn't bad.
Do I like the plot overall? Yeah, I think this got this kind of Matrix thing going on. And pardon, I didn't catch everything VG said, just because of technical difficulties. We're gonna have to work on that tech support. But I don't know how convinced I was. I don't know if it was the game's role to do that. I thought this idea of you living in a simulation Tokyo post-catastrophic event is cool, but how is it that 18 years could have gone by and just now, a series of murders are occurring? I think that Nocturne is a bit more well-conceived in terms of everything being summoned in the moment from an occult leader. Whereas I don't know what that was in this game. And then you've got like high school kids in a branch, run by the prime minister to start evacuating the demons and fight for the throne. But it was still cool. It was still cool to see all of the demon gods warring over the recreation of Tokyo.
I gotta say, when I booted this up and you're in the classroom, I got some pretty serious Persona vibes, and I was a little bit nervous. I love Persona. I'm a huge Persona guy, but I like Persona for Persona and SMT for SMT. And I was great. I was happy that it did not last very long. It very, very quickly moved to an actual SMT game. It almost took it as a joke. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, because you do go back and have like one more day of it later, and then it like all goes to hell, which is pretty awesome. So I'm not sure if that was on purpose or like turned it on its head. And I also wonder if there's something more sinister going on where Persona 5 was so popular that they wanted to start this. And so when people like see pictures of this game, it kind of looks like Persona, and then it gets more people into it. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not. Um, but that was my only concern with this game. Otherwise, I think the plot itself is serviceable and what I would expect from SMT at this point.
You know, another very interesting thing, I don't know if either of you guys have played 13 Sentinels, but it kind of gave me that vibes as well of having a little bit of that sort of parallel universe style of thing. Not anything to do with gods and stuff, but just the overall setting. And guess what? Another Atlas title.
Mm.
Do you recommend 13 Sentinels?
100%.
It's more of a visual novel kind of thing, right?
Oh no, well, there's visual novel, but there's also real time, sort of I will call it a semi real time strategy. It's not overwhelming real time. It's not like what is it, Ages of Empire style of real time, but it's more of a sort of stop and go and give. It's actually fairly decent, but yes, a very heavy visual novel, but has very similar environments, very similar. Well, I'm not going to say anymore.
Okay. Well, there you go. We got a handful of characters here. I'm not going to go over each one, but we got the protagonist, who's obviously a silent protagonist, as always in SMT.
Although you get dialogue options, so there is something.
Amon over here. You sure you didn't write that 3 out of 5 review? What are you giving thumbs down for?
I just don't like silent protagonists. That's all.
Listen to this guy. We ask him at the beginning, do you like your RPGs? He says yes. And then he comes in here and he's like, oh, I don't like silent protagonists. Isn't that like
That's
90% of RPGs in the past history?
But he likes random encounters.
Oh, likes random encounters, doesn't like silent protagonists. Got it. I think I figured you out.
Okay, fair enough.
Jeez. Any characters stand out to you that you liked here? We got the whole list here. I gotta say, I thought a lot of the side characters were really shallow. But anything you guys liked?
Come on, you first.
Yeah, I tend to agree. They were shallow. I mean, I liked, well, who would eventually become Tao. Um, Her character was a little bit more fleshed out than the others, but initially she was just more of a kind of a support there, really not really there. And then some of the side characters, they were sort of, I'm not sure how much they were adding to the story or the plot. They were sort of there doing whatever, going through the motions. I guess eventually we would learn why they're there. You know, they're sort of building their own factions, but we didn't really know that. So it was okay, I guess. Nobody really too memorable.
Yeah, we can definitely spend a moment talking about flaws with character development in this game. Before we do, though, I do want to acknowledge ones that I liked. First off, although I didn't like the merchant, his name is Gustav. I went there as seldom as often. I loved the me man that were just on the in the overworld. They always had something funny to say, and
Yeah.
just the collection aspect. And they're all like doing dances, and there's like female and males ones. Me man were cute as all hell. They looked like a half-boiled egg on their head. So me man was a win for me. The Nuwa, and then his name is Shohei Yakumo. Shohei Yakumo. As the kind of like Raido looking character. He's a badass,
Mhm.
and just the combo was really cool. So I think if there was a path I kind of gravitated towards the most, it was theirs. I do think that if we're looking at kind of just the core characters, especially in your Nahobino, and Spencer were going back and forth making Nahobino jokes at one point, like, yo, check out my Nahobino. Uh, but the Nahobino thing, I wasn't like I still didn't really get a good sense of Aogami. Apparently, he's like the brother to the prime minister, maybe like kind of like in a clone or something. Like I wasn't clear on that. It's like some digital program or something. I wasn't like won over by how cool he was. Sometimes he goes back and forth with you, and he's kind of like your internal voice. So there's your spoken word
Yep.
protagonist. Um, the two main paths, Ichiro Dazai, and then Yuzuru Atsuta, I didn't exactly love either of them. I mean, Dazai seemed like a knockoff Kanji from Persona 4, which I mean, I think the blonde guy from Persona 5 did as well. And he seemed like kind of a wuss. And I get it. It worked for his character development. He might have been the best developed character in the whole game, but not likable. So you don't just want to pick his path because like he's a wuss and basically sacrifices himself to God for power. And then Yuzuru Asuta is basically a follower. The only thing I really knew about him was that he had like a scary ass looking dog demon that I didn't fight in the whole game. And then later in the game, he fuses with the Prime Minister as his Nahobino to become some weird end boss demon that I didn't understand, like what the hell it was. Um, and then the other thing too is, the reason that like narrative is felt in a game like Persona 4 or 5 is because the connections are so well established. You are basically like you're suspected as like a murderer in Persona 4, I think, and your father's like a detective or something. And you get in this whole conflict, and that's why things are felt later on. In this one, it's just like, boom, here's your world. Okay, you're in a netherworld secretly. Let's go recreate Tokyo. To what? What am I recreating it to? All I've known is this vision, this fake image of Tokyo. And so I didn't really know what I was recreating it to. I was just doing it because these guys wanted me to. And like I didn't want to do that. And then the other option is like, oh, let's go with God's whim because power. And I didn't want to do that. So all I was left were bad choices. A fatal flaw in my eyes.
100% agree on the Nuwa Yakumo combo. That to me is the best thing about this game. Those two together, because they're more than just like a demon and human that are friends or whatever. They're like there's subtle hints at like a deeper relationship there. They've actually grown to perhaps love each other. It's hard to say, and I like that it doesn't tell you. It's just like you can infer, or you can infer what you want from it, and you're probably right. I adored that, and I wish that they took that subtlety and approach to all the characters in the game. I can't help but feel that Dazai is a shot at America, which I'm sure they've done before. I feel like, yes, a lot of the blonde characters that they put in these games are just like, listen to this description. A student at whatever the academy. He has a carefree personality but performs poorly at school. Jesus. Thanks a lot. He's clearly the American guy. Oh my god. All right. Whatever.
He's broadcasting his life via Snapchat in a tunnel that's about to collapse.
just they don't need all that description. Just call him the idiot. And then we
Stupid American. Next.
Yeah. Blonde. Yep.
Like that's just, there's no subtlety in that. It's just very, very clearly what it is, and whatever. We're you can't punch up, I guess. So we'll talk more about some of the story later when it comes to the endings. Let's move on to the most important part of SMT5, the meat, if you will, the gameplay. My God, there's so much to talk about here. This is going to be a long one. So buckle up and let's talk some numbers. Let's talk some logic. We're starting with combat. And there's a lot to talk about here. We've got the press turn system, items, Magatsuhi's skills, and negotiation. Now let's start with the press turn system, which has been around for forever. The best person I know to explain it that I've seen so far is Teddy. So Teddy, please explain to us the press turn system in SMT5.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Press turn. There are 4 turns, technically, because you have 4 demons on the field. The less demons that you have... Well, actually, I lied. You have your main character and 3 demons if you've got a full party on the battlefield at any one time. What you do is you make attacks, and if you get a critical hit on an enemy or you attack a weakness, you get an extra turn. So you can maximize your turns to get 8 turns. And also, if you manipulate the system, you don't even have to get 8 criticals. You only need 4 criticals. You can play with the system and do like a critical on the first attack, or you can pass and also get an extra turn that way. So if you don't have one for your main character, you could get it from the next. And you can manipulate the system to get 8 whole turns. However, it gets more complicated than that, because let's say you're fighting a demon and you don't know what the weaknesses are, and you accidentally attack something that is going to repel back at you, negate, or absorb. You lose either 1 turn or all of your turns, especially if the attack gets absorbed. I have a demon called Siegfried that it absorbs physical attacks. So anytime a demon, has like 4 turns, and then it does like it just does a regular attack, hits Siegfried, it's my turn, lucky me. But the same works in opposition. Reflection as well. Now, of course, this can work to your advantage and against you, especially let's say you're low health, and also if you miss a turn and you didn't get to your demon that could heal you up, well, good luck, because you die in combat and it's game over and you got to go back to your save point. So a lot of ways to play around with the press turn system. It keeps it intuitive. It keeps it engaging. It's very strategic. And, I think this is a type of game that's not necessarily on autopilot all the time. You do need to be very intentional with your attacks, with your moves, and with your items. So press turn combat in a nutshell is complex, but it's attainable. The more you play with it, the more you get it, and the more you learn to love it.
Teddy should do a infomercial. Wait, there's more. Teddy is the SMT master. I am fresh off of 3. Amon, you said you hadn't played this in forever. Getting back into the groove of press turn, how was it for you? Basically a new player.
Yeah, basically, like Teddy mentioned, I mean, strategy is the name of the game. I felt myself a lot of times using. Now, this is something that I compliment. I will give a compliment to SMT5, because even when I did not have something that would cause damage enough to get myself an extra turn, I would always go into my item section and use my items to my advantage. Something that I hardly ever do when it comes to RPGs, but SMT5 makes you use those items, makes you want to keep on using items. It's kind of like, a lot of these RPGs, you just hoard them and you're done with them. But actually, this was the first time, and I'm sure other games too, where you actually use items quite strategically in combat and use them more often than not.
Which items did you use in your playthrough?
Mainly the ones that cause magic damage. So anything with fire, ice, light, darkness, whatever they were weak to. Let's say if my build was all melee, then I would use, if it was my turn, instead of passing, I would just throw a card at them and, get an extra turn that way.
The items in this game are so insanely overpowered. I would highly suggest to Atlas to rethink the items or get rid of some of them entirely. Specifically, the dampeners. They have something called dampeners, and they apply it to different types. So you can have an ice dampener, a physical dampener, a dark dampener, etc. When you go to a boss fight and the guy is a giant wall of fire and you have 3 fire dampeners, there's not really a way that you can lose this fight. And it's not like you have a lot of fire bosses or ice bosses or that. So as on your journey, you tend to just stockpile it. And then when the boss is there, you can, not die ever. So I definitely think that those made the game a lot easier, and in some ways made the bosses more predictable. For instance, I had, if you're fighting the fire boss, you fight him, you do your turn of, it's going to be ice damage. So you do ice damage to hit his weaknesses. And then he goes, I'm summoning a big attack. Next turn, I'm going to use my big attack. Well, I guess that turn I will use the one item that is going to completely negate that attack and ruin his chances of doing any damage. And then I'll just keep going on my merry way of beating the shit out of him. I strongly encourage that those items get removed. They made the game very, very easy. I mean, later on, some of the enemies had more surprises. They could use a move that you didn't expect, and that would reduce the use of that. But once you know a boss even a little bit, those items are ridiculous. So
I didn't use a single one. I sold them all.
you sold them?
Yeah. And I made bank, and that's why my demon compendium is at 70% right now.
Nice.
The thing is, the problem with that strategy is that, like, say Cert, right? He's got Hades Blast, which is a physical attack, and then he's also got, his fire wall, etc. And so, you can't really predict which one he's going to use. And then there is some variety, especially in the bosses of the later demons. And if you want that challenge, of course, there's hard mode. It's already a damn hard game. Like, my vitality was pretty decent. I put a lot of points into vitality alongside magic for my Nahobino build, and I was still getting two-shotted. The other thing too is, we'll get to Magatsuhi in a sec, but if you're not well prepared for that, you're not guarding, then good luck.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. So Magatsuhi, was that in 4 or a form of that in 4?
Magatsuhi was in 3. You actually picked Magatsuhi for your character resistances, but they didn't have these like Magatsuhi skills. I actually have a question about it because it's something I didn't figure out. But it was not in 4. There was no like Magatsuhi gauge or whatever. This is like, I guess, what you would consider like a limit breaker in a fighting game or something. Like you get your special attack. So I can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Magatsuhi is stored. It's basically gathered energy, and they talked about it a lot in 3, and then didn't really do much with it aside from have you collect ones that you put on your main character.
Yeah.
It was cool. I liked it for what it was. In this game, it's totally different. So as you build up your Magatsuhi gauge, you are able to unlock Magatsuhi skills, either on your main character, your Nahobino, or your demons. And so the main one that comes packaged with your Nahobino is Omagatsuhi critical strike or something. And basically all attacks that you do are critical hits. And so that's an easy way to just get 8 turns and to also do extra damage onto the enemies. You just have to be careful about not nullifying your damage. However, when packaged with Magatsuhi skills that come from the Miracle system, you can actually use the Magatsuhi gauge very strategically. You can build it up more quickly. You can regain magic power and HP if you have a full Magatsuhi bar, which I pretty much relied on as a means of maintaining my magic power from my main character and my demons. And the other thing too is the enemies can do it. So this ties into the preemptive battle strike system. So what you do is your Nahobino has like a Jedi lightsaber, and when you're going on the overworld and you attack enemies, you can attack them with your lightsaber. I don't even know what they call it, your sword or something. And basically what it allows you to do is most times if you attack them correctly, you will start the battle. However, if you screw up and a demon just like runs into you, especially an overpowered one with a high agility stat, you might get attacked first. And so they may attack you a couple times and then also start storing Magatsuhi. And that can really screw you too, because once an enemy has the Magatsuhi, they basically have the same skill where every attack is a critical hit. So you either have to guard or know that their attacks are going to do nothing to you. So Magatsuhi was like a boon and a curse many times throughout this game.
I only use the critical one. I looked at the other ones, and as my Nahobino was physical, and I just found zero use of any of those skills besides the critical one. There was one that it was late game and it like reduced damage. I read about it online and I was like, what the fuck is that? And it reduced damage to like 10%, which is pretty OP, but very, very situational, and you have to know when to use it. Otherwise you just wasted it. So I only use the critical on the Magatsuhi. How about you, Amon?
Pretty much critical most of the time, almost exclusively. Yes. But it's interesting that I think you can learn to use other demons skills too when because obviously you go and unlock special abilities and stuff like that. So there was, a chance for me to use other demons' Magatsui powers, but I just stuck with the critical. It was just too powerful.
My question was, you get these items called talismans for completing quests, and they allow you to use demon or new Magatsui skills, but they were key items and I didn't know how to use them. Did you need the Magatsui skill, Race Transcendence, to use them, or was there some other purpose that they had, like they allowed your demons to use the skills?
Okay, I never ever use them, but I'm reading that it can be used in combat. As their description implies, using them. This will allow the user to use that demon's race's Magatsuhi skill. This gives you an
What
addition.
will? The talisman,
The
or
talisman.
the skill?
The
I didn't know how,
talisman.
like, how do you access it? Because when I went to items, it was just on the main items. Maybe I had to scroll over to key items or something.
That's what I thought. I looked at those because I was like, what the hell is this? And I never got to a point where I used them. So maybe.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't know. I never used it.
Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah. I didn't honestly the all crit thing was very hard for me to turn down. Especially as a physical user who used that one move that does like the Wrath Tempest. There's no way I'm not gonna use that. So I could not turn that one down.
Oh my gosh! You know what? Another understated skill is it's like restore or high restore, which restores your magic power anytime you land a critical or attack a weakness. And so, in combination with the critical skill, and in combination with any high MP using moves like severe attacks or anything like that, and if you weren't attacking an enemy weakness, and if you had that Magatsui skill that, like, when you're at full gauge, restores magic power, you could basically just get infinite magic power attacks. It was great. I loved it.
Yep. that was my farming strategy. Was keep the Magatsuhi gauge full, and then just keep on using Wrath Tempest in these groups, and it's basically free. So can't really go wrong there.
Oh yeah, I had a demon that had that. It was called Yoshitsune. It was really cool. I thought it was like a fighting game character or something, but
oh, Yoshimitsu.
Street Fighter. Yoshimitsu.
Tekken,
I thought I had
right?
Yoshimitsu for a sec. Yeah, Tekken.
But here's where I turn into a YouTuber. But combat isn't the only way you can end these battles. Sometimes you can use your negotiation skills to make friends with the demons instead of killing them.
While you're at it, why don't we negotiate a like and a subscribe out of you? Yes, you, viewer at home.
Before we get into this video is really hard to make. And we put in a lot of effort, so if you could. No. Oh, God. Amon and I have already kind of mentioned our opinions on the negotiation skill.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this is a common thing in SMT games. You can talk to the demons and try to get them over to your side. Now, it depends on the demon's personality and some choices you have to make. You got to wade through that, which sometimes it's obvious what they would think because they're like a crazy looking demon. And other times, not so much. They're more subtle. And even if you do win them over, a lot of times they'll start asking you for things as like almost a tribute. Sometimes that could be health. That could be your magic power. That could be items. That could be all of your money. I hated this. I've always hated negotiation. I would much, much prefer to just stockpile money and fuse them myself. But Teddy, what do you think of negotiation?
Oh, I hate to burst your guys' bubble, but it was a lot easier in this game than in 3 and 4.
Really?
3 and 4, you can give in to all of their demands, and they would still be like, all right, bye, bitch. This game, if you just met their demands, they actually just recruit. Like, if you gave them... I did not have one instance where I gave them what they asked, and then they ran away. And even times where I didn't have the item, they were like, okay, well, let me try this instead. They made this easier, like a lot easier. Now, and also, there's a thing like you notice the moon in the top right corner, the Kagatsuchi. If you were talking on like I think it was a full moon, they would either not talk to you or they'd be more inclined to talk to you. So I had a much easier time with demon negotiation, but I agree that I tend to err more towards the side of fusing once I get to that point and using the compendium and actually summoning. The compendium was much cheaper too in here than in 4.
Had several instances where they took my money, health, magic, and said, "Oh, you're just you're too easily manipulated. We don't want to be with you. Have a good day."
What difficulty did you play on?
Normal,
Played on normal. I played on normal.
Right.
yeah, luck of the draw, I guess. But after that, I was
Oh,
like, you know what? I'm gonna beat them down. They're gonna want to join me after this.
Yeah,
okay.
that was my strat. That's the Chad way. Uh, I oh my god, I had at least 2 instances where I negotiated with the demon, and he said, "You're too low level, but come back when you're a little stronger." And so I won them over, and then I fused them anyway. And then so I never got to the point where I could get them. And I remember like I fused one. And then I looked at his face because I don't even look at them necessarily when I'm fusing. I'm just like looking at the stats and yada yada, going with it.
Yeah.
And I fused him. And I was like, I just fucking talked to this guy because he'll come out and it's like, I'm here to be your friend now. I'm like, I just talked to that guy and I got him on my team and now he's my god, I just spent 40,000 Maka on this. Oh my god, so
Not cheap.
no. There you go. Negotiation is what it is.
There was one thing I didn't like though that they did with negotiation actually. It was like it sometimes if you came into battle, you could pay a certain amount for them to just walk away if like you walked in an encounter.
Hmm.
It was absurd rates of Maka that you would just never pay. So I did it once accidentally and I was like, "Oh, I'm never doing that again." Cuz they used to be like oh, hey, they'll be like, "Oh, wait, don't kill me. I'll join you or something." But like that didn't really like happen that much in this game. It was more so like just accidental preemptive battles where it was the enemy's turn first. I thought it was stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I basically said, "Bring it on. I'm not paying you a single cent, single maka."
Too precious.
He's stingy with his Maka.
Yeah.
Play over health.
Well, we talked about negotiating with them. Let's talk about the demons themselves. They've got strengths. They've got weaknesses. You can fuse them. There's different ways to get them. And you suck the essence out of them. Sounds like an ex-wife. Let's talk about the strengths.
Got that demon.
Let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses first. They have a big, like a bar right under some of their details that lists all of their strengths and their weaknesses. They can either have null, resist, repel, or they can just be weak against it.
Resist.
Resist would be that.
You said resist. Never mind.
Null, resist, repel.
Oh, drain
absorb,
is another one.
Drain, yeah. I think that's it.
Just normal resistance.
Just blank, like nothing. And obviously, as the game progresses, these get more and more intense and interesting. And obviously, you want as many strengths as possible and as few weaknesses as possible. Any of you guys make some good demons or get some demons that you like that had the strengths and weaknesses that you were looking for?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And actually you can modify them with their skill slots too. It doesn't start off at 8. 8 is the max after you use some of your glory, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And you can basically enhance how many skills they get. And some of the skills you can get are either resist or null or repel if you're really lucky. So, once I got resist physical on a couple demons, I just started putting it on everything because most of the demons throughout the game are attacking physically. And one of my best ones was Onkyo Ki. He was one of the ogres in the late game, and he naturally gets null physical. And so basically, like if every demon's using physical attacks, and I can null your attack and then just gain my turn, like hello, I'm gonna do that. So another one, holy shit, the Metatron essence gives you resistance and null to like 5 attacks and then like no weaknesses. So I put that on my Nahobino with a null force and maybe a resist light, and the only thing he would take normal damage from was dark. And I was like, incredible. That's like how do you beat this?
Yeah, my Naobino was the same way. I mean, I had no weaknesses. Either I was resistance or completely blocking many of the skills, with the exception of Almighty. So that was the only kryptonite, that I guess the game, at least from what I played, did not allow you to resist against. But as a general rule of thumb, I kept my demons um, pretty much what they were. I did increase their skill set as far as how much more or less their skills would become, but I didn't mess with their essences too much. Didn't really need to. Now Albino, because if he dies, game is over. If they die, yeah, it's a pain, but you can still move on.
Um, we'll talk more about the strengths because with the essences, it becomes a lot more interesting. We'll hit it more there. I have some stories to tell on that one, but let's talk about fusing your demons. And this is a big one because, especially with my last video, make sure you check out the SMT3 guide on how to get the best demons, and then listen to this one because we're going to tell you again how to get the best demons. We've already talked about negotiation. I'm sure that'll be its own video, so check that out too. Let's talk about demon fusion. Teddy is my local master at this, as he is with a lot of SMT stuff. He explains it so well, so I'm going to pass it off to him, and I'll add in, and Amon will add in what we can. But Teddy, how do you make the best demons in SMT 5?
Well, it starts here on RPG Archive, where you viewers at home would do yourself the favor of liking, commenting, subscribing if you want to learn how to make some awesome demons and more about your RPGs. But you came here for the SMT, so let me fill you in. We've got 4 fusion systems: Dyad, Reverse Compendium, and Special. Oh yeah, it's going to get special. Dyad is the simplest version that most people are probably accustomed to if you played previous iterations. You take your party, you put 2 of them together, throw them in a pot, mash them up, right, VG?
Right.
And see what you get. It actually tells you on the side, so there's no surprises. But it gets better. You can do reverse fusion, and you can actually see outlined all possible demon combinations from the demons that you currently have. And so you may just save yourself some time by seeing what are the most powerful demons I could make at this time. Reverse Compendium is even cooler because now you can take everything that's in your party and see what they would combine to make with or without other members of your party, and demons that are registered in your demon compendium. And so it basically makes the options infinite. You can see every single demon you can fuse. If you're one of those collect them all types like me, you're going to want to see what's left. Personally, I'm on New Game Plus, and I'm working my way through all of the demons, and I've got everything from level 1 to 50 already archived in the name of RPG Archive. One of the hardest ones to archive are the special fusions, and you unlock these by completing in-game quests, whether sub-quests or main quests, and they really are special. They're pretty damn kick-ass. It starts with High Pixie and works its way all the way up to Beelzebub, and there are some really awesome combinations you can make. Some of my favorite demons came out of special fusions. It requires 3 or more at times, and so you have to do your best to hunt them and see what's available. Before you have them, it's almost like a "who's that Pokemon" type of screen because it's all black and shaded, and it kind of makes you guess, what demon can I get at level 50? Oh yeah, it's Floros. So then you get it, and then you see that you can make Cert. And so, I had fun really hunting through the compendium. I'm still working on it, and I'm still working on completing the in-game quest to get as many special fusions as I can. A lot of great ways to optimize your party, and I think the best way is to kind of play with all 4 of them. How did you guys feel about the fusion systems?
Pretty much echo everything that you said. Yeah, the special fusion does really feel special once you get them. I think I got 1 or maybe 2 in my Lamud for sure I got, and I don't remember whichever the one I had, but they truly do make a difference in your party. So, of course, no matter which demon you get early on in the game, you're going to eventually move on from them. But it was really hard to let them go because of their. Basically, they have some amazing abilities that really tilt the battle in your favor.
Boy, the reverse compendium is a new one. That's basically where I spent all my time. And I agree. You sort it. You sort the compendium by, and this is more of a late game strat, but you sort the compendium by what you've made, what hasn't been created. So you put that at the top, and you just work on that list. Again, late game, early game, you just make what you can to keep going. But you sort by that, and then you sort the results by price, because what they'll tell you on that list is if it's in your library or not. If it's in your library, obviously you're saving a lot of dough, a lot of maca. If it's not in your library, it's going to cost you a shit ton of money. So I like to sort it by that to make sure that I'm getting the best deal. And sometimes, especially in my New Game Plus version, I would say, okay, instead of, trying to make this with the money that I have, which eventually money doesn't matter on like the number of runs you do. But at the beginning part, you're like, maybe I'll fuse some of these before I do this, and because they'll be cheap, and then you can work it that way. It depends on the logic, but it's a genius way to do it that really opens up. If Demon Fusion was like a video game, the other ones were linear, and this is an open world one, because it's wide open for you to make whatever you freaking want that you possibly can. And that was freaking unbelievably fun to try to get some of those combinations. These special fusions, I have some horror stories on. They can be frustrating because they don't really tell you what you need to fuse to make them. They got the silhouettes, and you're like, oh, it's like a dragon or whatever the type is, and then it gives you the level. So then you can piece together what you think that thing is going to be. And sometimes you're right, and sometimes you're wrong. And sometimes the problem is, especially with Beelzebub, like you mentioned, what it was trying to get me to fuse, you only get that as I think its own special fusion. It might not be a special fusion, but you only get that demon through doing a side quest. So that silhouette with that name or with that type did not exist in any compendium that I had. And I had to hunt that down. And if you can make Beelzebub, you kind of have to have him for the New Game Plus content because of his skills, which we'll get into in a second. But he was a beast, and the later game ones are totally worth it to get it. So the special fusions are friggin' awesome in this game, and it is well worth it. And they have a lot of times their unique skills, which is cool, that you can't get on the normal guy. So great explanation, Teddy.
That's
That's
one bit I want to add is that combine this with some of the unlockable miracles that pertain to either the compendium or the fusion system, and you can really get some demons that just come out of the world of shadows as OP that aren't just like the standard. So for instance, with the compendium, you can reduce prices by as high as I think 50% if you get all of the skills, which was a priority for me.
Yep.
You get the 8 skills as unlocks on your demon, and you can combine them with the resists and with the high pleroma, which will increase the attack powers. And then you also attribute 2 skills, one of which adds XP based on the previous demon's current XP, as well as their stats. And if you get like demons that have been in your party for a long time and have naturally leveled up with you, your new demon will gain like 20-30 levels. This was something you used to have to do on like a sacrifice for in Nocturne, which was pretty cool and led to some like really overpowered demons. But in this one, it just happens for all of them based on whatever you've done with your party and with those demons. It'll increase the cost, but it'll be worth it because you'll have some demons that may even be more powerful than you.
There is, and this is a bit of a spoiler, But if you do go to New Game Plus, it depends. I think this one might depend on which ending you picked. So just look it up if you're watching this and you need to know. But they do give you a special miracle that will let you make demons that are above your level. So
yes.
I mean, if you're gonna play a New Game Plus, just make sure you do the right ending so you can then do that.
It might be confusing it because the one I got just lets me negotiate with demons above my level, but you're probably talking about a different ending.
Yeah, I think it's one of the other ones.
Yeah, I didn't realize why there was a skill that cost like 10 glory, and I was like, okay.
There's a couple of those that they just throw at you at that point. And they're mega overpowered, clearly meant to be a New Game Plus thing. And yeah, you can make some that are over your level. So I made the Metatron one pretty much as soon as I could after that. All right. Let's get into, I assume this is new. Were essences in 4? Okay. So this is a new thing to 5, and it's the ability to pull essence out of a demon and apply it to yourself or another demon. And you can apply for other demons, you can give them the skills, and then through some miracles that are obvious ones to get, you will apply it to yourself with the skills or the affinities or resistances and strengths and weaknesses, yada yada. So I adored this, and you basically have to use this to get through the game. Amon, you got any horror stories from trading your essences and upgrading your characters?
No horror stories, mostly positive, but I was always skeptical. When I would go in and trade my essences or affinities, I'd like, okay, is the next boss. My rule was simple. As long as light and dark are not a weakness, I'm good to go. If any of those two are a weakness, because I have horror stories of getting killed by some random character that was 30 levels below me. I'm like, okay, that's no fun. So that was my only rule of thumb. Do not make yourself weak to any of those two. And that was it.
That's so important to mention too, because that's an upgrade. It used to be that in all of the previous SMT games, if you were weak, light, or dark, it was insta-kill.
Mm-hmm.
So like that happened to me through Nocturne at some points. And I don't even think you needed to be weak at times because there was just that chance of insta-kill. I don't remember too clearly now. But my thing was that I was always debating within myself, and I was very conserving with my essences. I had a ton of them even by the end, and I still have a bunch that are just unused. But to me, it was better to have more than not, just in case for some boss battles. And I was always debating, am I going to use this essence for skills, or am I going to use it for resistances? Because a lot of the best ones had the best of both.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think in the end, I tended to defer more towards the resistances. I only ever put them in my Nahobino. I definitely used them. I exploited them to get things like the Great Life Surge, the High Restore, the Null if there was a weakness, either to the weakness or to physical attacks, and also the Pleroma, a High Pleroma on using. And so like that's primarily how I use the essences. When I first got them, I was so confused in the game. I was like, what are these, like Persona tarot cards? And then it, like, once I uncovered the system of the essences, I was more intrigued and more interested. I think like I wouldn't stress it in the early game, but I think as you make it further in the game, they become a lot more useful. And definitely prioritize your Nahobino with them. And then once you've got a decent supply, you can start messing with your other demons. That's kind of my philosophy. Spencer?
Okay. My final one was actually when I beat the game the first time. My final one was, it did have weaknesses, but I found that the essence you really want, and you mentioned this earlier a little bit, but was if you can completely like reflect or absorb physical, you could get through most of this game. And that's what I did, and it got me through the game. But what I ended up doing, which I think is what you did first, which was smart, and I think you did this too, Amon, was the Metatron guy. You take his essence, where he's not reflecting anything, I don't believe, but he's blocking almost every different spell they could do. I think Dark, he just doesn't have anything to it or something. But I did that, and then I took a skill. The essences at the end of the game are like, there's one skill that you want, and so you just use the essence for it, or you want those affinities. And I would take one of the skills would be repel physical from somebody. I don't remember who, but I took his essence of repel physical and just applied it as one of my slots. So a combination of that can make an unstoppable person, because you could also do that and get something that like repels dark, and now you have a person that literally can't be touched by anything. It's just a turn ender, except for like Almighty. But I think the essences are a smart way to manipulate yourself into feeling like an overpowered god, which SMT is a game that pretty much encourages you to do so. And I think it's fun to play around with it. And I can see why they didn't let you pick your affinities the same way they do skills, because you could very easily make yourself unkillable that way. You really just have to pick the affinity of something that already exists and follow that. So I could see why they wouldn't let you do that, but that would be the last step, which I'm glad they didn't take. I like the essence system, and I'm like you guys. I don't think I really applied it to the demons as often, because it's like I don't want to waste an essence and then just get rid of that demon later anyway. But if I needed to, like if I'm going to a big boss fight and I know it's weak to fire, and my big magic user doesn't have a fire move, I'll snag a fire move off somebody else and just toss it on him, just for that reason. But never to make an ultimate demon, unless you're at the very, very end game, in which case it makes sense. But yeah.
We talk about skills.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Favorite skills and also new additions, because there were things I was unfamiliar with. I was unfamiliar with pierce, like attacks that will pierce a weakness. So my end game guy has a skill that like dancing like fire, kind of like hula hoop guy.
Yeah.
He has a skill called Trisagin or Trisagi on.
Yeah.
That's a fire attack that pierces weakness. So I have a magic build, so I put that on him. And I also have like a bump on fire moves. And so that's a high energy fire attack that pierces. But if I know that an enemy can be attacked by fire, then I have the severe fire attack. I forget what it's called. It's like Agi something. They have a system for like how they name these things. Agi Barion or something. So the piercing skill is definitely one of my favorites. What are some of your guys' favorite skills?
Amon, any come to mind?
Yeah, I enjoyed the piercing as well, because it kind of puts a hamper on your. I think it lowers their whatever stat it is that it lowers on the. Or maybe it just goes through regardless of their immunity. I don't remember exactly what the added effect was. I was a strength build, so primarily my skills were all just destroyed. But I also used Almighty a lot too, so I built that up. I didn't care too much about magic, so I basically my rule was pick an affinity that had most resistances. Then for skills, when I was picking skills, I would take block darkness or block fire or whatever. Those what I filled with. Then one or two is what I had the actual skills that I would use for my hero, which were like physical and or Almighty, and that was it. Simple but very effective.
Did we have the same exact build? Holy shit. Did you have Wrath Tempest?
I don't remember.
The move that hits random enemies, but like
times or something.
I did not use those moves because I did not like the randomness, because there were a lot of things that deflected and I'd lose turns on that. So anything random, I was not accepting. So no, get that out of here.
Oh my god. Anyway, I'm not even going to hear that. But because you're using it against bosses.
Well, before yeah, I guess that's true too. But bosses, fair enough. Like I said, Almighty, nothing was blocking Almighty, and I was focusing on that, and that just wrecked everybody's day. Boss, non-boss, they can be resistance to whatever, but I knew, especially when you build your Matsugashi gauge up and you do all critical, and when you do it on Almighty, they were done.
I'll tell you what I think are the two most overpowered. Well, I'll say three most overpowered skills in the game. I would argue the first one is luster candy.
Oh yeah,
The second
love
one
luster candy.
is the opposite of luster candy. It's debilitate.
Debilitate. Yeah.
And then the third one is a passive. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but Beelzebub gets it. And the other earlier ones get it too, but very rarely. But it increases the length of the status spells that you apply to things.
Boon boost.
Boon boost. And there's a Boon boost EX. So it's extra.
4 turns?
4 turns.
Oh, shit.
And Beelzebub has all that. Well, I think I had to give him one of them. It might have been debilitate or something. But I turned him into my buffer / debuffer. And what it does is it lowers or raises a rank, or all ranks, by 1 for either your opponent or your team. So if you use luster candy, it makes your team go up on all stats by 1 rank.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use on your opponents, the debilitate, it lowers it by 1 rank.
Of all, though, it's like attack, defense, and accuracy, and evasion.
And it's to all enemies and / all party members. So, and other RPGs, I'm usually not a status guy. Like in Pokemon, it's like, use Tail Whip. It's like, fuck no. I'm going to freaking use Tackle. But in this game, you're often faced with bosses that are just more powerful than you are. It's just kind of the state of how the game is played. Your ticket out of that is luster candy / debilitate, because you suddenly can make them like, God, the scale of it must be 5 levels or something of just like how far down it puts their skills.
Yeah.
And if you can apply it twice, they're freaking useless. And you do it both ways. And there's a boss at the end, and I don't want to, again, VG said I'm allowed to spoil things, so I'm just going to do it. There's a boss called Vishnu.
Yeah, I met him. He kicked my buns, and I ran off like a little girl.
Oh, you have to be like level. The guy that was looking at recommended 96. I beat him at 99. He's very, very hard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which sucks because he gives you 3 essentially rare candies, which were useless to me at that point. But if you fight him, he, even at level 99, he's way, way stronger than you. So you have to apply the debuff to him and all the people he summons, which he summons constantly. And you have to keep those up. Now, the reason that you want the boon boost that Teddy already mentioned is that they increase the duration of those, because they normally only last 2 turns. But the boon boost EX will increase it to 4 turns, and they're very expensive. They're like 150 MP each. So Beelzebub can keep us boosted / the enemy weakened for a very, very long time for a lot cheaper. So huge call out to those skills. I think especially for all the end game bosses that you're going to do, you have to, you don't have to, but you really should be applying luster candy at least to your team.
I agree. I only used I had a demon that was called Norn. It was a special fusion with the 3 of the Moirai sisters. I can't remember the names, but basically like the 3 sisters that like control time in Greek mythology. And I would be able to bump my Nahobino's magic attacks. He has like a build of like 100+ magic, and he would be doing like 2,000 damage with a severe force attack or fire attack, up from like what would be like 500 or 600 or so. And say you're hitting a weakness too, like, I was doing some serious numbers on him. So luster candy was a must for me. Use it twice. Use it before you use the critical Magatsuhi skill, and you'd be doing like some serious damage. The only downside to that is if the enemy has D Kaja or D Kunda, and they can just negate whatever it is that you just did to your
Mhm.
side or to theirs. It's not a fail-safe, but it's pretty good when it works.
Yeah. Um, let's talk. I mean, there's a lot of cool skills. Beelzebub, I hate to keep bringing him up, but he's my boy. He's my favorite demon in the game. He
Lord of the
has
Flash.
he has a severe uh mass, no, hits all enemies attack of dark that pierces. It's freaking insane. that guy's.
You fight him?
No, I just fused him.
Never fight him, and so you.
I don't think I fought
We're
him.
gonna come back to that, but
I don't think I ever fought him, but I was pumped to fuse him because, as I mentioned earlier, it was a freaking bitch to get him.
yeah.
You have to do so many side quests just to be able to fuse him. It's
Have
insane.
him as a fusible for my first playthrough.
Did you finish all the? Did you do side quests?
Not all of them. I guess
There's
I did enough though.
There's a chain that you have to do, and if you don't do that chain, you can't get one of the fusibles for him. And I've generally skipped side quests,
Okay.
so I had to go back, and on my last playthrough I got him, just because of what you had to do. Worth it though. All right, I did. Never mind. That was another.
Give it.
One.
Yeah, because I was. Yeah. We're gonna come back for the ending bit.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Glory. I think this was an awesome addition. Again, I don't know how much of this concept was in 4, but
Wasn't not at all.
perfect.
Oh, but it was like they had like computer points or something. That's the name for it.
But it was that this kind of thing was in 4.
That's how you got the skills. So they had the skill tree thing, but it wasn't like it wasn't as fleshed out as this. I will concede that.
Okay. So with Glory, it's basically hacking the gameplay, which is awesome. I'm surprised it wasn't really in the other SMT3. Like it's such a great evolution for the series. It makes me it's questioning too, because like when I was first playing, I'm like, man, I only have like 4 skills on these demons. Like, what's up with that? And you realize that the game wants you, as you grow, to give you what's called avatar strength, which is how you feel about your power as you grow throughout the game. And the game gives it to you through Glory, which is a currency, quote unquote, that you collect as you play and progress and explore. And it enhances your skills. It enhances your demon skills, your ability to fuse. It enhances literally almost every aspect of the gameplay that you could have. It enhances what you can create, what you can fuse for yourself, and improve the amount of items that you can get. So it's just such an awesome way to expand the gameplay. And how you get it is mostly through exploration, finding these white pods everywhere that are in unique places on the map, that you have to sometimes use some platforming skills. My banjo skills are coming into play here. Or through finding Me-Man, which are also in hidden places. And they offer, there's a great bit of exploration. Amon, what's your take on the Glory system and any fun memories of exploring the world finding Me-Men?
Absolutely essential, and I'm actually kind of shocked to hear that they were not part of the earlier. I don't remember them being part of SMT3 from way back. But yeah, I mean, it was almost as if I needed that. And those spears are, like you said, basically the platforming sections of the game that really make you go to areas. I mean, you can see it in the distance because it kind of leaves that trail going up and down, and you see it. Like, how do I get to that? And it's actually kind of cool. Now, my rule was for exploration is basically get OP for all the characters that are in that level, so I can explore a little bit more freely. And then I would go and figure out how to get to those glory spears and get them, and then obviously build your character that way. Um, a great system for sure.
we're gonna talk more about what you just touched on in a little bit. But Teddy, what's your take on glory?
This brings in the developer interview quote to mind. Give me glory or give me death. No, that's not their quote. Their quote was in the trailer. Keywords Shekinah glory appear, literally translating to miracle of God. And that's literally what you spend this currency on is miracles. And I, like Amon, was hunting them down because I felt like I needed them on my team. I was always excited. Give me opportunities to get some more glory. A Me-Man's giving me only 6. That's cool. I'm going Me-Man hunting today. This game made me a hunter. Like, I'm looking at every corner. I'm turning, like, the second analog stick. Like, there's got to be a Me-Man hiding in that corner. And I can't wait when I talk to him and he gives me 6 more so I can get the Null Force Magatsuhi skill. Or whatever it is. Not Null Force, the Null Boost. So I loved always that challenge of like looking over on a horizon or something and be like, how do I get to the top of that building? Or how do I scale? This also combined nicely with the abscess system. Abscesses are little pillars that come out of the ground that send little hordes of demons your way. And they basically unlock new miracle skills for you to pay for. So everything worked well in tandem. The abscesses actually blur out part of the map. There's like, and once you get to one of the later areas, there's like 5 abscesses on screen. And so if you really want to do some exploration, you got to make sure you take those things out too. And one of the key ones was really hard in one of the last areas. There's like, just sends Orochi snakes, and they're like the most powerful demon at that time, and they're badass, and they like basically have 1,000 HP, and will just like, you're maybe averaging at level 60 at that time. And I was a hunter. It made me a hunter. And I just wanted to explore every little caveat or cavity of area, and that suits my style of gameplay. I love a game where the exploration is meaningful and important, and I felt it in this game. It was a miracle.
One strategy I had that I developed too late, I think, but I is definitely in the last section of the game. Can't remember the name of it, but I would stockpile my glory. Like, I would find it throughout the world and stockpile it and hold on to it, because the first thing I wanted to do before I did anything was clear out all of the abscesses in the area, because like you said, they unlock different new miracles for you, and some of them are just extensions of existing miracles, like, oh, you can increase your physical damage or your physical trait, whatever, to the next level or whatever, which is great. But some of them were completely off the wall ones you weren't even thinking about. And you're like, oh, I didn't even think I could lower the cost of summoning demons by 50%. That's insane. So in that aspect, I would, instead of spending it, like as soon as I got back, I would clear out all the abscesses and then take whatever I had with all my glory. With all my glory. I like that phrase. It must have been intentional. And use it then, which slowed down some progress a little bit, but I think it made for smarter choices in the end. So that would be my one tip if you're excited to use the glory. Just if you can, hold off on it just so you can get more abscesses in the area, and then apply it, because you might get what you really want out of it that way. Because I had a couple of them where I spent all my glory, and I can't remember, some nonsense. And then I like fused demons and I was broke. And then the next one I got, I think it was like reduces cost of summoning demons by 50%. I was like, no, I don't have anything. I can't do it. Like, so one tip. I have a table of miracles here if you want to hear what they are. There's Supremacy, which that one is like allows your demons to use items during battle. An ally's MP will recover when guarding. These are in the middle of combat kind of miracles that help your team. Demand essence from cornered demons. Demand Maka from cornered demons. Demons above the Nahabino's level can be recruited through negotiation. That's Divine Embrace. The one you're talking about, Divine Persuasion. Demons will sometimes join you unconditionally. I'm sure Amon would have wanted that one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We have Doctrine, which is about summoning demons and essence fusion. Things like newly fused demons will gain a stat bonus based on the stats of the demons fused. A demon's starting skills can be overwritten during skill inheritance. Cost of summoning demons reduced by 50%, stuff like that. We have Awakening, which, let's see, has to do with the demons themselves and increasing skill slots, increasing amount of demons you can carry, and increasing some of the stats of the demons themselves. And then finally Cosmos, which I didn't appreciate until the end game, which increases your Nahabino's mastery of any of the elements. So physical, fire, dark, light, electric, ailment, almighty.
Mm-hmm.
It's expensive.
Any miracles you recall? Any miracles you recall that changed your life?
I mean, I got a +9 force, +7 fire Nahobino build. You know, some of them are staples. You have to, like, I can't see you playing through this game and not unlocking 8 skill slots on your Nahobino or your demons. Need both of those because it just opens up the game so much more for you. Obviously, the fusion system was great, but you could do a Magatsuhi build as well. You know, that's pretty useful. And also, I don't know, the cost of the recovery fount, recovering magic on your main character. Like I made sure that was at max reduced price. Off the top, that's like what I'm thinking. How about you guys?
Yeah, I skipped on the ones that basically when you level up, you gain this much, or you fully heal or partially heal. I didn't care about that. The demon and Nahabino slots were critical. I focused on those. Also, like I said, I was a physical build, so building my physical all the way up, that was critical. And I'm trying to remember what else. I can't think of what else I did, but I know that I did not use too much in magic. Did not invest in, maybe I invested 1 or 2 points in fire and 1 or 2 in ice, but that was about it. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I had Physical Mastery 5 and this is the Almighty one came at this in the new game plus. But I ended up with Almighty Mastery 5. And one thing that the skill potential that they don't, I mean, it's not obvious. I guess they don't tell you anything. They just say skill potential's up. But one thing that you don't think about is it also reduces the MP cost of moves in that family. So a lot of Almighty skills are actually really expensive. But if you have Almighty Mastery 5, it actually reduces it to, I think, 40 MP is my severe Almighty attack. That's strength based. I can't remember the name of it. So that was a must. And then obviously the Physical Mastery 5 was for my skill. But like Teddy was doing it for his magic moves. It's such a huge boost to get those. It doesn't really tell you how important it is until late game. You're like, oh my god, this is freaking awesome. Those are my favorites of them.
It basically became a system where I was recovering the amount of MP I was using on severe attacks. And you can kind of pick and choose what it is you want to do. Like you were mentioning the physical attacks. That's a new addition to the skills I didn't mention before was the Draco strikes. You know, they have like physical attacks in the magic or the arcane fields. So that was really cool. Like I was all about that, especially even on some of my demons. And even though it wasn't on my main character. And I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to play with it. There are some other things you need. I think the more demon slots you open up, the more important. I think we had this conversation at one point, Spencer, was like, what should you start investing in sooner, your Nahobino or your demons? I think it is a balancing act, but the demons come first because there are more of them. And also, if your Nahobino is left as the only one on the battlefield, which happened to me several times, it becomes very hard to summon other guys back in and start like taking down these high HP bosses. So I put a lot of stock, literally and figuratively, into my demons and my demon compendium.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when you when you go down a slot, it's not easy to bring them back. It's very challenging.
We talked on it a little bit, but this section will probably be shorter than than expected because we covered some of this. But I did want to talk about the exploration in this game. It's a lot different than 3, and I think it's
And
probably
4.
it's a lot different than 4. Okay. Um, and this probably has a lot to do with the engine that they had, the Unreal one. Can't remember the name of it, but with their new engine, they're able to create these awesome landscapes. Unfortunately, that all look fairly similar with just different color changes. But regardless, they're still awesome, and there's so much to explore, and they make it so interesting. I noticed that Teddy helps me with my notes. This little peek behind the curtain, and he wrote Naruto running, which is true. He does have his hands behind his back and he runs around. And that is goofy. But otherwise, it's so much fun. And I did like looking at all the buildings. I'm a sucker for post-apocalyptic environments. I love looking at people's different interpretations of what the world would look like if it just kind of ended one day and like you go into the future. Aman, what'd you think of the landscapes and the exploration in SMT 5?
For the most part, I liked it. So yeah, I did talk about one area that I did not particularly like, which was the castle. The
Mm.
and Yeah, I did not like that castle where the turbines are blowing you all over the place, and you have to use them to get from one level to the other. That was the only level that I did not like in the game. Other than that, everything was pretty awesome, pretty well designed. Even though the game is not necessarily a platformer, I did find that platforming was enjoyable.
Coming from an RPG perspective, though, what did you think of the shift between the not open world, but larger scale world of the 4 big areas versus the dungeons?
Yeah, besides that one dungeon, like for example, the second to last dungeon, if you want to call it that, the whatever Eternity or something, whatever it's called, Temple of Eternity, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
That area I enjoyed way more, even though that's a dungeon as well. But for whatever reason, I just did not like the castle dungeon, and I think there's one or two more that I can't remember. Even when you're back in the school area, which technically kind of works as a dungeon, I had no problems with that. It was kind of cool, but no, none of that wind stuff that drove me crazy.
Do you think that they didn't really know how to implement the dungeons within this game as well as maybe they have in the past, or what do you think the problem is? Because there aren't that many dungeons. There's only, I mean, 3.
Yeah.
Do you think they just do you think that's a weak point in this game?
I think it's weaker than Persona dungeons, in my opinion, for sure. But I mean, if you're going to look at the overall open environments versus dungeon, yes, I would call this the weaker point for exploration. I think the open worlds are done much better, and it's really cool to kind of, like I said, you look something in the distance that's up on some building and you don't know how to get there, but eventually you kind of loop around, go around, and figure out how to get up there, and it's kind of rewarding to actually get that and feel like you've accomplished something. Whereas in dungeons, you're pretty much running around aimlessly trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B, and it's not that much rewarding to me.
Interesting.
Persona 5 dungeons, yes. More intuitive, puzzle based, and I they are grand kind of experiences. Even Nocturne, I think, had better puzzles, and I think that's probably what this system is harkening back to. Persona 4, though, those are randomized. I don't know if I see those as being necessarily better developed than the ones here. What's your take on that?
You're asking me?
Played them a long time ago.
Oh
Persona
yeah.
4, yeah, I don't remember hating him as much. How about that?
Okay.
Maybe I was just so involved in the story that I did not mind them. I think they were fairly straightforward. You kind of go up and up and up and get to the boss at the end, from what I remember.
Yeah.
this, the problem with this was I don't remember that Persona 4 dungeons relied on platforming to get from point A to point B. Maybe they did. Like I said, played it a while back. But these dungeons and the game in general relies on platforming where it's not really its strength.
Yeah,
Platforming like jumping
sure.
around. Yeah. So
Like the
just when it came,
ledges and stuff when you're in the
right,
overworld. Yeah.
right. So
The
Okay.
other thing
I don't know.
I would say to help Amon's point is that I think Persona 4, yeah, the dungeons were randomized and there were straight lines, but the Persona games have a certain gameplay loop where I think it's okay that they don't have to be as complicated, because like Amon was saying, is you're more looking at the relationships between the characters and trying to expand on it and level up that, so to speak, but also actually in the game.
Mm.
Whereas in SMT5, I think one of the problems with these dungeons, specifically, I know which one you're talking about, the demon one, is that it's just so cold. Like the games are so lonely, and especially that demon one, it's so dark and depressing, and the when you get knocked off a ledge because it blew the wrong way, or like a thing happened, you're not really like happy. You're not really happy to be there. It's more of a level of frustration that for most of the game, it's not even, most of the game isn't grid based. Most of the game, like in the open world, is just like, go have fun, go jump here, go jump there.
Yeah.
Whereas in the dungeons, you quickly realize they just took, the SMT3, that grid based style that they're used to, and went back to it. And they didn't really make a dungeon that suits the game. I think they feel kind of out of place in a lot of their architecture.
But I think it's a disservice to talk about exploration and rely heavily on dungeons as the main focus of the discourse, because the first part where it drops you in is a giant sand ocean of the apocalypse, and there's buildings that are falling apart, and it's not linear in the slightest. In fact, there's a bunch of sand surfing up and down. And like so there is some platforming. You do need to do some, but I mean, a lot of that is just simply for purposes of exploration, for finding me man, for finding treasure boxes, for finding glory. So, I mean, I think when I think of the notable environments, yeah, the Demon Castle's a bitch. Fuck it. But I like the Fountain of the Fairies. Like once you get to that part, it's pretty cool. I think of like when you're hopping across those gray buildings, you have those like flying lion Anzu demons, like coming in at you in any time. I think of giant Fafnir's floating overhead. I think of the last area where it's like basically giant skyscrapers, and even like where you have to where you can go to the top of a mountain, you can look out and you can see abscesses. So my view of the exploration is definitely from an overworld perspective, with the dungeons just being parts in it.
Oh, I agree. The game excels when it's outdoors, when it's doing its big thing. I personally, I think that the dungeons need an overhaul. I think they should be more freeform, like the open world ones. Obviously, not being open per se, but not so grid based. I think they just stuck to their guns on those dungeons for whatever reason. And
They could have done grid based. Nocturne had done some fine things with it. I remember the Tower Kagetsuchi where you're riding giant squares up the building. And what's the Hell's Castle rely on? Fans? Like fuck that.
yeah,
I get it.
I
It could be better, and they've done better 15 years ago. Like, so what
yeah,
happened?
yeah. I just think they had an opportunity to break from that, and they chose not to. And I don't know. I wish they did. I wish they chose, like maybe a more Zelda approach, or a more interesting way to do it than just the traditional grid based.
Well, do you guys see that as a pitfall of the game, or do you see it as a nuisance? Either answer is fine.
Yeah, so I will say, as far as the dungeons are concerned, I would have liked, like for example, like I mentioned, the when you go back to your high school, that's kind of plays out as a dungeon as well. I know it's a really small one, but what made that place more acceptable, more special, was they introduced a lot of story elements within there. Um, Whereas these other dungeons felt okay, really there, but they were just if they had a little bit more story elements introduced in them, I think they
Yeah.
would have been a little bit more bearable.
Sure.
So
They did feel like they were just there to waste your time, huh? Like all of them, except for the
Like I'm in
school one.
Satan's castle, and what's the end boss here? Like a giant blob?
Yeah, that's a good point, Amon. I didn't think about that. That is one of the reasons. They were just there to have a lot of like time and to help level you up, and they felt that way.
And annoy me. Be a nuisance, to answer the question.
I think
Okay.
I think for sure it's a pitfall. I think they already did it with the overworld to make it more free form and more exploration based. Why not do that with the dungeons? Instead, they went with their tried and true, and it seems like a step backwards. I would have liked something more ambitious.
Yeah, I mean, originally I was leaning on the nuisance aspect, but I mean, if I do see a pitfall of the game is that, story is maybe on not necessarily the back burner, but not fleshed out to the point of being as profound as previous games or even other games like in the Persona series. Yeah, I could see it as a pitfall. I do have some issues with just like the telling of the narrative and just feelings of overall satisfaction by the end. Although I love the systems. The systems don't always make the game, which we'll get back to.
We could get there now if you want.
I'd
That's
love
a
to.
great transition, Teddy. That we ruined by calling
Thank
it a
you.
great transition. Let's talk about the story overall. So we've talked about all the gameplay. We made it through the gameplay, Jesus. And we have the general story and then the endings. I guess let's just talk about the endings, and then we can talk about the whole story. You have 3 endings that you're allowed to pick easily, and then a fourth.
Oh, easily. Okay.
And then a fourth that somebody. We'll get to that in a second. But anyway, it's a lot harder to get, and most likely you'll be getting it on a second playthrough. And those 3 endings. Why did I not have them up already? I think I have a link to it, actually. I should just click on that. I put these links in here, and then I completely ignore them.
First link.
Yeah, here it is. Open link.
Copy it. I'll put it in the chat if you guys want.
All right, so you have 4 endings, and the first 3 are I will uphold God's order. And this is the ending that aligns with Abdiel and Ichiro Dazai. The next one is I will recreate the world and save Tokyo. And this ending is aligned with Koshimizu, that's his last name, and Yuzuru Atsuta. I will destroy the throne. And this is the ending aligned with Nuwa and Shohei Yakumo. And then the 4th, quote unquote, hidden / secret / true, whatever you want to call it, ending is create a world for humanity alone. And that one, for me specifically, was a bitch to get. What did you guys pick as your ending? I guess your first ending. Amon, go ahead.
Come on, you first.
So the option for me was the second one. Initially, I wanted to destroy the throne, but then. So here's my horror story with the game. I was building up Tao. I was using all my powers to keep her on level with me because I was using her as my primary healer. Plus, she had a skill where not only would she heal, but she would also buff us. So I was keeping her around, and when she heard that, destroy the throne or whatever, she's like, I'm out of here. So she leaves me eventually anyways, but I was annoyed, but I went with the second choice. So not I didn't go with Abigail or Abadale, whatever her name is. I went with the second option.
Oh. Damn. I think
And Tao user.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, she leaves me anyways afterwards.
He played you, Amon.
Teddy, I think you and I had the same one. Which one did you pick?
I destroyed the throne because I texted you. I said they all suck.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go with the one that just gets rid of everything. Why am I gonna side with lame boy Ichiro Dazai and the cynical, insane Archangel Abdil who's just sprouted like a demon spawn out of her face, strange body? Or why am I gonna go with these weirdos to save Tokyo, and I don't even know. Like they're gonna rebuild the world and all of the gods with it, and then they're gonna fight over it. Just seemed like a lose-lose. So I was like, you know what? Let me take charge, and we'll just. I thought that the idea of keeping the world as it was would be cool, and yeah, that was my logic between choosing destroy the throne.
I had the exact same logic. I said these demons are freaking children. I can't get behind any of them. So let's just destroy this thing.
Speaking, I had that logic too, but of course, like I said, the character left me, and I had to restart. And I was like, "All right, fine, stay with my party." And of course, she left me anyways.
That end game segment is so short, so she probably barely had her anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right, we did a Reddit poll. We asked Reddit, and we actually got some results on this one. I think I shared it on one of my other accounts. And what do you think got the number one pick?
One that we all picked first. Destroy the throne.
You say destroy the throne? 42 votes.
Damn.
And the number one was, with 16 votes, I will destroy the throne. So
okay.
Yeah, we picked. Now here's where I think there's a bunch
margin,
of. Here's where I think there's a bunch of fucking liars. 13 people said create a world for humanity alone. I don't think so. To get To get that one, you have to beat Shiva. And Shiva is level 96. And also really, really hard to beat. So unless they did a whole bunch of grinding, which would be very, very hard, or at least very long, I doubt that they got that ending first.
Got a hardcore Reddit base, man.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty hardcore to be on Reddit in the SMT thread.
But if they say so, okay. I highly doubt it, though. Coming in third with number 8 with 8 votes is I will recreate the world and save Tokyo. And then last, I will uphold God's order. Not a lot of God fans here. That's why they're playing SMT.
Exactly. Portray himself as likable in this one, or as envoy anyway.
I do have a stream of not a stream, but a recording of playing the hidden ending. So if you want to see that, go there. I explain how to get it too. There's a lot.
75% compendium or something, or that might be a factor.
No, it's you have to complete 4 quests, but those quests are often tied to many, many more quests. So you have to complete all those, and one of the quests is beating Shiva. So it's just you have to make sure that you do it, and if you don't do it right, you have to go back to like the beginning of the game, to like the worlds, and make sure those quests are beaten sequentially. It's kind of a nightmare, but if you just are good and diligent about beating all the side quests, then you'll be okay. But also, you have to be able to beat Shiva, who's a level 96. If you can do it, go for it. But it'd probably be your second.
Easy mode, baby.
Yeah, good. Switch it to easy. I will say that Shiva is one of the more memorable boss fights. He's very, very hard, but as long as you keep the luster candy and the debilitate up, you will be okay.
Is it worth it? Is the true ending worth it?
No. Just go to my YouTube video and watch the end. There's almost no difference. It's totally not worth it. Please don't waste your time. But I will say additional New Game Plus playthroughs take about 4 to 5 hours. So if you're cool with that, then go for it. Knock yourself out. But no, it's definitely not worth it. As most secret endings aren't. Usually just like little things. Nonsense.
Did you guys like your ending for the first game playthrough?
I think I did. The breaking the throne. It was kind of cool to see how angry that guy got at me. He's like, "What have you done?" I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah!" Felt like a badass. I was cool with it. I knew it would be subtle, so I was cool with it.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I did not dislike it, but I I've already forgotten what happened, so I'm gonna have to rewatch the the cutscene or whatever else happens to remind me of what the final things were for my ending. But it was not memorable. How about that?
Mm. I've realized that if I'm playing this in terms of narrative importance, I have to stop picking like the edgy ending because like that's technically the ending that ends all endings. That should be the last one I pick. I just don't know going into these sometimes. Am I going to do New Game Plus? So like I ended up wanting to do it, which we can talk about in a moment. How is New Game Plus in this game? But it did leave a bit to be desired. I got kind of Nocturne flashbacks when I picked like the true demon ending, and then like it's just like a small, short kind of like section. And then I didn't really understand what happens next. You just have your main character walking towards the disco ball, Kagutsuchi, and I was like, okay.
So that's SMT 5 as far as story goes. We talked about if we're satisfied with the ending. How does the whole game wrap up for you guys as far as a story package? Amon?
Story or just the whole thing? Like
Story.
just review. Okay.
Story. Amon, as an RPG fan, I'm curious to see what you think of the story of SMT5.
Average at best, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
What did you, you said you played SMT3 like a long, long time ago. Did you have any feelings about that story?
I don't recall.
But it didn't like impact you in a way that you're like,
No, it did not
whoa.
impact me. Yeah, so I mean, like stories like Persona 4, Persona 5, I still remember. They definitely impact me. But the SMT games, I mean, they're average. They're there. Maybe it's just me.
Teddy?
It's a bit let down. I think I kind of alluded to it throughout this, but SMT3 I think was somewhat more cerebral and open-ended. I don't think that I felt more invested even in the characters for as subtle as they were in 3. I think that each one kind of had like a personality of interest, like the girl who's seeking power, or the guy who's just kind of coasting and doesn't really find his path, or you go with the teacher who seems kind of like, she's got a kind of noble ambition, or you just say screw everyone, like let's go with Lucifer. And this one, I just wasn't. I don't even know what the personality of Destroy the Throne was. You could say it was the Shohei and Nuwa, but even then, it just kind of seemed like a opt out kind of ending, where it's just like, well, I don't like the other two, so I'm just gonna pick this one. I didn't fully understand what reinstating God's martial law was, and in Rebirth of Tokyo, I didn't understand, like, are we going to recreate the vision again? Are we just going to bring it back? And then, like, are we still going to exist? Because that was 18 years in the past. I think my character is younger than the Rebirth. And so, like, a lot of it left me with questions, but not good questions, just clarifying questions that I don't think had logical answers. I think Nocturne was more well put together. Then you also put into play the fact that the ending choice comes with like an hour of gameplay left at the end of the game. When I played SMT4, and maybe this is, nostalgic memory speaking, but my choice of my path came halfway through and had significant impact on how people and NPCs actually talk to me in the game. That there's none of that. Like, what NPCs are left by that point, and they're not judging you based on your decision. It's more felt, I feel, in 4, and that was the first game I played, and that set the bar high for me. So I'd love to go back and try that one and see how my opinions have changed, and or if they are, what I think they are. But story wise, I was underwhelmed by 5. Not to say it's a bad game. Many great features about it that I love and I'm still putting time into. But I do know that I think what Amon is saying, average at best, is a good way to put it. I don't know if it's winning any awards in that front.
Yeah, the SMT games always had ironically, like a biblical approach to storytelling, where it's very subtle and it's more abstract. Like whereas Final Fantasy plots are usually very convoluted and like a lot of characters and a lot of intrigue and this stuff going on and this guy turned on this guy, and SMT usually eschews that in favor of a very like and then Satan or whatever, Lucifer, transcended to the afterlife or transcended into a special world, and all of Tokyo is destroyed, and you are there, and you meet like 3 characters that represent entire like pantheons of knowledge, and and you meet like one demon that represents the fall of humanity, and you make your way through that. So the stories aren't necessarily as interesting or as intricate as those. So I'm used to that. But I think SMT3 handled that concept a lot better because the characters actually felt like they represented stuff. Like you said, like you had characters that you watch them progress and you're like, oh, this is what the world that he envisions would be. Like his is more, I don't care about the demons. I'm just here to relax and enjoy life. Oh, okay. And then you see it as his character progresses that those actions becoming that. Or you see a character who's more structured and feels the order of God is important. And, oh, she's like big on rules. Like, oh, shit. And so, whereas these characters, like you said, you talk to them only, like 4 times throughout the game. And it's usually not even about that. It's usually like, I don't know what to do. I guess I'll follow this demon. Okay. And it's like, all right, nice. And then he's like, by the way, do you want to uphold God's order? It's like, jeez, it's a big question. Can't we just talk about a movie or something? So yeah, I think 5 is definitely lacking, and it even reminds me of like what you're saying, where they'll treat you differently. God, like Western RPGs, that's one of the things they really excel at. That I always think about with JRPGs is that the Western RPGs are so big on choice, and JRPGs are generally just so much more limited when it comes to that. And this is just a really bad example of that, where it's like, doesn't mean your choices generally don't mean almost anything until the last hour of the game. And then even then you get an ending that doesn't feel earned. It just doesn't, it's just there. And it's like, okay, I guess that's what I wanted. Yeah, I think the story here was a big lack of focus. I almost think it seems like they ran out of time. It seems like at some point they're like, weren't we supposed to put a story in here? And it's like, well, it's November 10th, so I don't think that's going to happen. So we got what we got. Maybe in a remaster they would explore and flesh this out some more. But as it stands, definitely a weaker story than 3. And definitely a weaker story than what most JRPGs offer.
3 had 5 or 6 endings, like, and each one kind of a selectable path. Like, I just don't know. And who is Yuzuru? Who is he? He's just a kid in school, like that.
Yeah.
You don't become invested in that school. I'd really be curious for you to play 4 and just see how you feel, if it's similar or different. But yeah, a bit of a shame. Not a bad game. It's a good game. It's actually a great game in some regards, in terms of exploration, in terms of a collection and team building, in terms of a narrative. And it sucks. That sucks.
Well,
this series is supposed to be reputed for its multiple ending thing. It just seems like a dud here. So. At New Game Plus, if ever there was a game where when I got to New Game Plus, I was like, I want to pick the ending that gives me all my shit back. This is that. I'm gonna run around tearing shit up on demons with my OP party. Nahobino.
Well, speaking of New Game Plus, it does offer 2 options for you. You can get the newborn mode. The following elements are carried over: enemy info, demon compendium, unlocked fusions, and certain miracles. Whatever that means. And then data carried over, and then there's also the reborn mode. And in that mode, you get the Nahobino's stats, levels, and miracles. The demons in your party, Maka and items, minus the key items, of course, and your glory, that's like a true New Game Plus. The other one's almost like a light New Game Plus. Amon ain't doing it. He's put his foot down.
I saved that option too, just in case I ever did do it. But yeah, I quit after the ending was done. I got to the New Game Plus save. I was like, all right, I'm good to go for now.
I assure you, dude, it's not worth it. Yeah. But Teddy, you said that you kicked one off, right?
I said I wasn't going to, and then I was like, screw it. We're doing the archive on Saturday. And so I've started, and now I have like 900 glory and like 40 me man, and I'm on like the second world. My demon compendium's at 70%. I will definitely not do that newborn mode until maybe the very end if I'm on like a fourth playthrough, but I doubt it's going to be years before I get there. I like it for what it is. I mean, it kind of, I don't know if I'm using this term correctly. Maybe you guys can help me, but I think it's like a true sandbox. Yes, no. A sandbox is in kind of like an open world and kind of like a playground and like just getting to run around and tear shit up and just like feel like a god. It feels like God mode.
Definitely feels like God. I wouldn't use sandbox, but definitely God mode, yeah. Which is ironic because that's SMT.
What it is. Yeah. In that sense, like that's technically the realization of the series of like making you like starting you off at like the most human and bringing you all the way to like world maker.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually enjoying New Game Plus in a way I didn't anticipate I would. I used to be like, no, when I do New Game Plus, I want to keep the challenge. And I did that with Nocturne because that's the only mode they give you in the remaster. They don't give you this carry everything over. You actually have to start back over at level 1. But I'm actually thoroughly enjoying going back and even just increasing the difficulty a little bit to hard and going through it that way. I think Shiva's going to be a bitch if you try and fight him like in hard difficulty, but maybe I'll save that for the next playthrough and just reduce the difficulty. And for this one, just pick a lighter ending.
New Game Plus makes you realize like how short the game is, like as far as actual like content and switches. Do you remember in I think it's the third right before the Demon King thing? There's a boss there that gets weakened by pillars. Like you have to like deactivate pillars. Like there's like 7 pillars.
Yeah.
Sir, yeah. Oh no, it's it's like that Viking chick.
Some angel lady, yeah, Viking lady.
Yeah.
Well,
that's right before the entrance.
Yeah. Well, on New Game Plus, because you're such a monster, you don't have to do any of that. You just run up to her and beat the shit out of her in one turn. So it's like it's really interesting to see like just how much fluff they put in. And it's not bad fluff. It's just that like looking at it from a developer perspective, like the different things they put in your way that don't really exist once you're just like a powerful monster.
I hated that segment because I had run into those pillars a bunch of times before coming into her. And I was like, why can't I just deactivate these now?
Yeah.
That was typical padding. I think on hard mode that was going to be more difficult because like I have level 80 demons and we're not taking out level 30 or 40 ones in 1 or 2 shots. Some of them I actually need to use all 4 turns for.
Oh damn. That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's actually a decent challenge right now. I have over 100 magic power. Why are they not going down in 1 shot? Once on the battlefield, yes, but if I'm doing like abscess battles or some of the boss battles, they actually have some stamina.
Damn. All right, well, that wraps up SMT5. Let's talk about the legacy of the game. Usually when we talk about the legacy, it's from a game that came out 30 years ago. So we have a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, this one just came out, so a lot of it's going to be predictive. We do know it's the best-selling SMT game so far. Does that mean there's going to be an SMT6? I guess it kind of does, right?
I hope. I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. What in general do you think that means for SMT in the future for Atlas? Do you think they see it as one of the big sellers?
It's the best sellers. What does it mean for Atlas?
Yeah. Do we get
another 5-10 years and make another one?
Yeah, I think it's a series that I think that they can build upon even more. Maybe give it a little bit more focus. Maybe something that they need to realistically look at and say, can this series potentially reach to the level of Persona? Probably not, but at least can we make it a good B to Persona being A right now? I think Persona is not gonna be overtaken by SMT, but they can definitely coexist as a strong A and B.
I have an interesting prediction. I think that SMT will get another game. I think that just like SMT4 had Apocalypse, I think this one's got another game in it. I don't think you make a 220 whatever demons and not use them again. I think financially you're like, okay, let's bring them back for SMT5, Nahobino or something. So I suspect that will happen in a couple years after a PC release. But yeah, I think there's a lot more SMT in the future, and hopefully some good spin-offs. Hopefully some more Digital Devil Saga, man. That game, I love that game.
Say,
Yeah, you go. That's fine.
I was gonna say one more thing. I know we didn't really touch on it, but I have to give credit where credit is due. I think the soundtrack and music in this game is phenomenal. Even the demon voices and stuff like that, but the battle themes are some of my favorite in any game. I really made the battles so much more enjoyable for me just listening to that music as you fight subtly and then the music kicks in. Man, that was magical for me.
Dude, try 4. The music and like the style and everything is like more like feudal and kind of like Celtic, and like you hear like horns and stuff.
Okay.
That's music in 4 is like that to me is phenomenal. I actually felt that this one paled by comparison, even to some
Wow.
of Apocalypse. Uh, I got lost in like the OST. I'll just put it on sometimes. With this one, I feel like there's a few less memorable tracks, although I like the subtlety building, like the kind of
Yeah.
you know, the atmosphere of like what they're trying to go for. They've done better in my eyes. Even Nocturne, I'll put on Nocturne. That one's just like metal as fuck. So I like that one too.
I agree with Amon on this. I like the soundtrack for this. I like that it was more environmental than musical per se, but a lot of really droning guitar that just kind of drowned itself out was very curious. I haven't heard a soundtrack like that in a long time, maybe ever. So yeah, that's a good call out. I think it was a pretty good soundtrack. Although of course with me, I play a lot of it on mute, but um, towards the end, they really mixed it up with some musical choices with boss fights. So always crank up the volume for the boss fights because you never know. There'll be some pretty metal soundtracks, songs on those.
I do like that the environments kind of escalated in intensity of the music. Like it started off like when you went into a battle, it would just be kind of like a droned out sound, and then like, and once you press action, like then the tune kicks in. So there was
Yeah.
some clever stuff going on there.
Yep.
As far as my view on what the best-selling nature of this game means for the future of it, I don't know. I don't see it going the Pokemon route where it's like new game every year. I don't need like spin off or whatever, what have you. Because to me that would be like how well did Nocturne Remaster do? And like it looked like it sold about the same as the original Nocturne. Um, I would like it. I would definitely love and support, more of the archive of SMT games which exist, the Digital Devils, the Raido Kuzunoas, the classic Personas, and even like the 3DS ones. There's a ton on 3DS. Like I would play them on Switch, throw it as a $25-$30 download. I got you, Atlas. Like here's my wallet, but does it mean that will happen? I'm doubtful. I don't know what Atlas has up their sleeves, though. I'd love to be pleasantly surprised.
This is the first SMT in over a decade. On our first console SMT in over a decade. Yeah, our last one was SMT3. I guess one weird thing with that is that there aren't really handhelds anymore, and except for the handheld now is the phone. Which there probably will be some SMT games released. There already has been, but there probably will be more released on the phone. I don't know what else to say on that one. Do you have something for that?
Let me know how it plays.
Well, there was one on the phone, and it's so hard for phone games not to feel like freaking gotcha.
Yeah.
Dump your money in this crap, and it unfortunately feels that way. But it has all the trappings for a great game. It's just hidden behind. It's just because like you'll play it and you'll be like, oh, it's just like SMT. Cool. It starts out great, and then it's like, and then a hip guy will come in and he'll be like, make sure you go to head on over to the Compendium finder. And then you're like, okay, and then it forces you to go through a long tutorial about that. And it's like, make sure you get more demons with blast points. And then you're like, oh, how do you get that? It's like with your real money. And then they're like, make sure head on over to the satanic circle over there, and then you go there, and it's like, how do you use this? It's like with real money again. Just endless tutorials about how you should waste your money. So hopefully it stays on console. I think there's a lot of opportunity for it to be on console, and a lot of spin-offs, a lot of remasters. Hopefully it stays there. So I'm excited.
Agreed.
Also stays on Steam because let's help Atlas get them some sales.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Is this the hardest RPG on Switch?
Deflect to Amon for that. I think he's the Switch guy.
Because you played Amon, you played all the way through Bravely Default 2, right?
2. Yeah,
I'm playing through that right now. Yeah. So you're the RPG
So
expert.
yeah, hardest one as far as turn-based RPGs. It's kind of hard to say which is the hardest or not. I think the general rule of thumb is if you are prepared, then the answer is no. I personally felt like the boss battles in Bravely Default 2 are a bit more challenging, especially some that come later on. But in terms of the overall scope of the game itself, like even, for example, even if you're not well prepared, if you're weak to light or darkness, if you know don't save your game, you can get ambushed by an enemy and then basically destroy you. So in terms of the overall game, I'll say yes, but in terms of boss battles, I'll say no, not really.
So what you're saying is SMT is the Dark Souls of Switch RPGs.
As far not quite. No, I'm not saying that. I don't think it's as challenging as people make it out to be. But what I am saying is it's not you will have to do some grinding. Once you do your grinding, once you do your homework, once you learn how the game mechanics work, you will be able to succeed. Whereas in Dark Souls or the Dark Souls style of games, no matter how much quote unquote grinding you do, you'll still probably face some challenges that are a little too much for the normal skill of a person. Now, this is, of course, normal difficulty. Hard difficulty, I'm sure it could be considered one of the harder games.
Teddy, do you think SMT5 is hard?
Yeah, but I'm a pro, so worked for this. I'm playing on hard mode. What up, Reddit? Is it the Dark Souls of Nintendo Switch RPGs? Probably not, because you can play on normal and even casual. I agree. I think the gameplay systems are intuitive enough where you can use them to your advantage. I don't know that other RPGs, even on the Switch, are the same, like that, where you can really exploit things to your advantage. So, I've never played a Dark Souls, so I can't even make that statement. I don't know, but a hard game and a cognitive, challenging experience that does make you spend time being pensive and also considerate of your party, your compendium, your maca, your main character, your builds, everything. And that's why I love SMT, is because it's a very immersive experience. Many times I booted up SMT5 with a full Nintendo Switch battery and played till it died in handheld mode.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I was that invested in every aspect, from the team building, the battles, to exploring, and it's engaging in a way that I think a lot of other RPGs aren't. And so anytime I'm playing an SMT game, that's what I'm playing. Not much else.
Amon, we got another one that seems specially designed for you. Is
Uh-oh.
this? Yeah. Answer correctly. Let me freaking clickbait it. Jesus, you shot down my other one. Is this the best? Is SMT5 the best RPG on Switch?
Not
Not for you. What's better?
I can think of many. Best RPG on the Switch. Man, okay, now you're putting me on the spot. I personally enjoyed Bravely D2 a little bit more, just speaking from games that came out last year. Uh, Basically any RPG that has an above average story is probably gonna be a better one. I'm trying to think of another one. I can't think. I was thinking of Octopath Traveler, but no, that doesn't have a good enough story for me to say it's better than SMT5. What else is
So
on?
you're like a big story guy.
I do. When it comes to RPGs, they have to have a good narrative for me. They have to have a good everything. RPGs is about story. It's one of the most important um, genres that where the story really does matter for me. If you're playing an RPG, if the story is not good, I don't care.
Teddy,
But in terms, of, but I still love the game. So
you shit all over it. Teddy, what do you think?
Fuck yeah. It's the best one I've played on Switch, and that I've beaten. And then, of course, I haven't beaten all of them. I'd love to try like Xenoblade Chronicles, and I know it's more of an action RPG, so then we're going into that distinction. I don't play RPGs for the same reason all the time. So I do appreciate that Aman distinguished between, like for him, like narrative ones are important. They are important for me too. For SMT, I don't know that's why I come into the game. I had mentioned several things before, such as the customization and exploration. This brings me back to Terry 309 when he had like that 6 category topic and he's like, what kind of gamer are you? Well, I mean, I mentioned it, I really like exploration. That's my number one. And I found that it was very rewarding in this game going for glory. For glory! And also for builds and also team building. And I have like I'm still going through and I'm trying to get all my demons. I think that's a massive boon in this game. Like if you compare this to every other Pokemon, it's just a pain in the ass to try and get all the Pokemon. And that's the whole point. It's like got to catch them all. SMT does Pokemon's job better in terms of everything, in terms of exploration, in terms of collectability, even in terms of narrative, which, although it's kind of flubbed in this one, the overall scope is way darker and deeper than any Pokemon game could hope to be. So I know maybe I'm being selectively biased here, comparing it to Pokemon and also rooting it in my own nostalgia, but it is the RPG I was most excited to play and go through on my personal Nintendo Switch over the past 2 years. This is a game I've probably been waiting for.
I think it's
Teddy,
one of.
thank you for. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, hey Teddy, thank you for reminding me because now that you mentioned it, I like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 more
Oh
than this.
my
I haven't played the
god.
and and I also like Fire Emblem Three Houses more as well, which is a tactical turn-based
Oh
RPG.
my
But the
god.
but but those I prefer.
Yeah. Tactical RPG and Waifu Simulator.
Just keep it in your
That's it.
pants. Keep it in your pants, otaku. Jesus. Um,
Uh,
the only one I can safely say I like more than SMT5 is Dragon Quest XI. I would put that over this game.
Okay, that one too.
Yeah, I'm on. Get it? No, even. But yeah, I think it's definitely one of the best. And if you need a counter, I mean, they kind of counter each other, Dragon Quest and SMT, in a lot of ways. So you can kind of get the best of both worlds by just playing both. So, but it's certainly up there, especially if you want a challenge. I think it's good. I did give this my Game of the Year award for 2021 on the Button Mappers. So it certainly gets my respect. I love this game, and I'm super happy for it. I guess final thoughts. Amon, what are your final thoughts on SMT5? You had to give a quick review of it and your final thoughts. Go ahead.
Great game. minus a couple of things here and there that I disliked about it, which we talked about, of course. The dungeons and the story. Besides those two things, love the exploration, love the demons, love the design, love the voice act. Well, no, the voices. There's voice acting in there as well, but the overall aesthetic of the game, phenomenal. Definitely a must play.
Teddy?
Shin Megami Tensei 5, the long-awaited sequel to SMT4 and 4 Apocalypse, delivers massively on certain fronts and does fall short in terms of the overall scope and character development, which is rather unfortunate because other games in the same series have done it better. I think, I'll take what I can get. If I'm happier with this than without, if there was no SMT5. I think that if we stop the series short on the 3DS, it would be tragic. I think it is one of the best RPGs and one like series that I've ever played. It's one that I love and that I kind of fall naturally into. I think what it does deliver well on, it really exceeds and is excellent. And for that reason, I love it and was happy enough to go in through a new Game Plus file, and I'm continuing it, as we speak. But I happen to be a fan. I think it's great. I think you can recommend it to certain people, and they get a real kick out of it if they're really looking for something different, darker, and also with some interesting artwork and aesthetic. What's lore? And lore.
And the lore.
Welcome to my lore channel.
I think SMT5 is an awesome evolution. It's probably the most fun SMT game I've played. I think it evolved the gameplay perfectly. And yes, it comes short in the story elements. So if you're big on gameplay, this is your win. If you're big on story, I don't know. If the larger your scale of story, the less you'll like this game because it just doesn't really deliver there. It's more of just the elements and the gameplay and the world, the exploration. A lot of that's really good. So it's a solid package for me, but I could see people obsessed with story. It ain't gonna work. There's some things from Nocturne that I miss. Nocturne had a whole side dungeon, and I think it'd be nice if this had something like that, and it doesn't. So it feels a little bit empty from playing Nocturne right before it. But otherwise, it's a solid package, and definitely worth the price of admission. You'll get your hours out of it. So recommend for me. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on this 3-hour long cruise through SMT5. Make sure you check out VGMashUP's YouTube channel, as well as Teddy's Majora T. Anything you want to say to the people before we go, VG?
Thank you so much for having me on. Really was fun. And I hope you guys get to play it.
And Teddy?
It's been a blast. Love being here live on the archive, and also getting to talk about some great games with my lovely fellas here. All right, well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, and we can consider SMT5 officially archived. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.